Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Asian Esports Championship here for the IESF. Once again, it's the road actually to the WEC. Again, I'm Naisu, joined here with my boy once again, Mirko. Mirko, how we feeling? We just did Africa. Now we're here in Asia. We're traveling.
Yeah, from Africa all the way to Asia, and it does seem like at least here, at least for us, it's better timing, right, Naisu? So I'm feeling greater than before, but honestly, when it comes down to how these teams play, I'm not too sure about that, right? I mean, we'll see, because we were talking about how the African region was so cool because it was a breath of fresh air with all the new heroes, all the new picks. I really hope we get to see that as well from Asia, but I think we kind of have an expectation, a certain level of a lower expectation at least when it comes down to the heroes that are going to be picked up by the Asian teams. Usually more disciplined, usually more of the meta. Yep. But to be fair, the meta is getting kind of crazy right now, Naisu. So with the addition of some of these items, especially considering, there's been a few days since the African regional qualifier, since the update too, I'm wondering as to what will actually show up, how good they're going to be on the patch too.
100%, man. I'm glad you pointed that out because for those that were watching the African online qualifiers for AEC, the patch came out on the last day of the women's, right? So we saw glimpses, but that just wasn't enough time. And I actually feel like even now, at least from what I've heard going around, there still is so much room for these teams to kind of experiment. And even when you see some things being played, for example, on certain streams or certain teams are pulling out, there's still the coaches there with the final word. And I heard some of this where it's the coach is probably like, not yet. Don't bring that out just yet. Let's do some more testing. But I would say that this is a good shakeup, to, again, the meta that was really established. And now that we're here in Asia, we're kicking it off with MLBB women's. And still, relatively, there's some of these countries and some of these teams, of course, that not everyone that will be tuning in is so familiar with, and eventually there are some that are going to be very familiar, even going on into future tournaments that we have, of course, for MLBB. But the main thing is you've been watching for a long time. If you guys are very familiar with the meta, you're going to notice things probably are going to change a little bit. And I love the fact that we have these new items. We have, of course, the shakeup in some of the picks coming up. Now, you guys can say what you want about the Sky Piercer, but of course, you'll have to see exactly how these teams have adjusted, so far to the meta and everything else. We're going to take a quick look, though, at our schedule going on here. And of course, just like in ISF fashion, guys, we do have games going on simultaneously, of course, some that are streamed and some that are not. But as you kind of take a look at things here, we're starting off, like Mirko said, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan for the women's portion to kick off today. Actually, all the games today are going to be women's games. And then, of course, it's followed up by Hong Kong, China versus Mongolia. And we end our day number one with Brunei versus Indonesia, which, I'm sure you have a lot to say about that team playing later on, Mirko.
Definitely, right. We'll get to that later, obviously, for Brunei versus Indonesia, Hong Kong, China versus Mongolia as well. Let's stick to Kazakhstan versus Uzbekistan, though, because from my experiences as well, the last two online Asian qualifiers that I was able to also cast for, I saw the exact same matchup happen last year. Same exact matchup happened also in 2022 to qualify to the main stage in Bali of 2022. But for Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, I actually got the chance to cast the men's side, right? And for the men's side, at least, that's the reference that I'm going to be bringing up into this matchup. Uzbekistan definitely look like the better team. They definitely look like they have, the core understanding of how even the other Southeast Asian teams play. They have a very similar playstyle to all the other Southeast Asian teams where they prioritize the meta. They want to go for as many prio picks as possible. And for Kazakh, they're a bit more... they're a bit more diverse. They're a bit more unique in their playstyle. Because I wouldn't even say that they're brawly. I would just say that they are kind of pick-off heavy and individually oriented. Like, they want to go for prio on their individual lanes. They want to win their lanes individually, and that's it, right? Like, they go to the team fights with the lead, not with the synergy that they have with their composition. So that's what I've come to expect from Uzbekistan versus Kazakhstan, but obviously this is the MLBB women's side, so maybe we see a completely different playstyle from both these teams. Maybe Kazakhstan are going to be the ones with more prio. And speaking of the meta, I've been an absolute SPA. Nice, you know what that is?
What's it? SPA? What is it?
I've been an absolute Sky Piercer abuser. I've been abusing the heck out of that item, bro. Because it's
I think everybody has,
absolutely
man.
Especially when you, yeah, everybody. And all right, firstly, to the people watching back at home, don't just force the Sky Piercer, all right? Like, if you're using Claude, don't go for Sky Piercer, man. That DPS is gonna take a while before you get to the execute part. But yeah, I've been playing like the Brodies, the Rogers, and it just feels so good, man. I think the Assassins as well. So I think the Assassins should be back in the meta, honestly, after the Sky Piercer build, and that's why. Even though we have, you know, these new big items like the Wishing Lantern, Forta Novaria, it's still going to be really tough to go for these very, very vulnerable mages in the mid lane, or even vulnerable gold lanes in the gold lane with all the assassins roaming around.
Yeah, and speaking of, again, this is our first matchup to kick us off. It's Kazakhstan versus Uzbekistan, and this is, we'll get, once again, women's that we're going to be kicking it off with, guys. So there'll be kind of a mix, you know, throughout the next couple days here of the Asian Online Championship. Not only that, but also this is going to be a best of 5, this one that we're kicking it off with. You know, and leading up to the point with that, Mirko, like, I guess got to ask you, like, do you think this is this the end of, like, tank meta, or like tanks? Are they struggling, or was some of the item changes, of course, that we saw with some of the tankier items enough to kind of keep them competitive against dealing with, you know, SPAs like you?
Honestly, I think the tanks are not completely out of the meta. I think you can still make it work, right? And that's why we're actually seeing a lot more diversity even in the jungle, which I think is desperately needed in the jungle. Because we've been talking about how for everything, for every single role, it's been so cool to see the gold lane get fighters in there. Even sometimes we get to see mages there, but mostly still marksmen. But still, a lot of different marksmen could be meta in the gold lane, right? Same goes for the mid, XP, roam as well. So many different heroes that can be played in all these roles. But the jungle for the longest time has just been so one-dimensional. You go for these tanks and that's it, right? Like, the best you could do that is not a tank is probably like a fighter. Maybe a Martis, an Alpha, but that's about it. Now, I think it is going to be a bit harder to pull off the tanks, especially the tanks that don't clear as fast, right? So the Akais and all the other tanks that actually kind of struggle in the early game portion of the game when it comes to clear. I think especially up against the Assassins who snowball a bit faster, have a little bit more damage in their kit as well. And they have an execute technically in their kit now with the Sky Piercer. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of tough for those tanks. But for the Bakshas, I think for the Baratsas as well, for the Fredrins, they should be better. I wouldn't say okay. We'll have to see. We'll kind of like gauge the meta, what's OP, what's good in these matches.
I think the way I would look at that is it's pretty exciting because it brings some of those, you know, assassin picks viable again, more viable than I would say before. And we're going to take a look at the lineups here too as we kind of talk about these changes here. Of course, for Kazakhstan, we have Yumino, we have Amaya, Amore, Asami, and how are we doing this one? Kanoa? Is that what we're going to go with?
I really hope it's Kanoa.
Kanoa?
Unless we get like Kanoa.
Well, hopefully we're close as can be with some of these pronunciations, but again, you know, like we have had experiences, of course, seeing some of these teams compete, and although, you know, some of them have probably changed some of the roster a little bit here and there, one thing is true about every single team that we watch: they have a very distinctive play style, and it does take, you know, if those regions are changing their playstyle, if those countries are changing their playstyle, that's something we kind of have to see unfold here. Now, for Uzbekistan, for their lineup, we're going to have Kana, Hinata, looks like slowly, Space Loves Us. That's how I'm reading that. Space Loves Us. And Hirith.
Space Loves Us.
Space Loves Us. Space Loves Us, I'm assuming. Space Loves Us. Right?
I was reading it as Space Love Sus, you know?
Yeah, because Sus is so popular with Eterna, right? But Space Loves Us is how I'm reading it, man.
All right, let's hope it's Space Loves Us, because I'll also like follow in with the Space Loves Us pronunciation. But yeah, for Uzbekistan, Kana, Hinata, slowly, Space Loves Us, Hirith. I really wonder what they want to go and bring up into the meta, right? What they want to actually pick up later on in the draft. Are they going to go for more of an assassin build, assassin pick to go for early game snowball, or are they actually more of a, you know, discipline, objective-based team? Because I think in a lot of different tournaments happening now around the world, we've been seeing a lot of different ways that you can actually tackle the new meta. I've seen Export Jungle actually pop up a little bit more because of the War Axe change, right? Because obviously we're talking about the Sky Piercer. It's a great item, but a lot of the other items have been changed as well, like the War Axe. It now kind of includes the Bloodlust Axe as well, the glowing one. It kind of includes the NOD as well. So a lot of item changes that makes some of these fighters as well, very, very viable. And that's why I think Roger has been able to get so much value out of this new patch. You get the War Axe, you get the Sky Piercer, right? And technically you could use the Mailfit gun. You use your ability, land it, you get additional attack range. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, it's something that we'll just have to see. I haven't been utilizing the Mailfit gun a lot in my games, actually. So yeah, I think it's a bit more of a niche item.
I think so, man. I think it's I haven't seen many build it yet, but again, this is a good point for experimentation. Maybe we see it here kind of unfold throughout the Asian Esports Championship. But so far, it's been mostly like the first item for a lot of people was Sky Piercer, the way they kind of tested that out. But I also want to see how some of the changes go with like these tankier items, right? We know that Thunderbelt changed a little bit. You actually get pretty good scaling. I think this also allows Fredrin to still be pretty good. As long as, I don't know, man, lore dances are a little bit scarier, and as we're now on this region that is known for objective taking and lore dances, and especially like long lore dances, mind you, some going 5 minutes plus. I guess that's my biggest question with this patch is like, how has that adjustment been made? Are we still going to see those long extended lore dance fights, and kind of just waiting to see who pulls the trigger first? Or are they much quicker to be resolved, and part of that could simply be because of one item, unless teams have figured something else out, because I think that's such a big change that a lot of us might be, I don't know how to look at it. Like, is it a welcome change? Like, people are like tired of these super long lore dances and they just want to see clash after clash after clash, because that's the way you look at it for people that really love to break things down. Long lore dances are like a chess game themselves, and it's actually very high, mechanical and a technical thing that has to be done. It might just look like, they're just stalling out, keeping the lord there, but there's so much going on to that, and timings are everything when it comes to that. So I guess my thing is like, how much has these items changed the course of lord dances, especially when we're talking about later lord dances, when the lord starts to really hurt, like even before the patch, and now the lord hurts even more the more lords we get into.
I personally am an LDE, a lord dance enjoyer, right? I really enjoy those lord dances. Like you said, I look at it as a chess game. It really feels like it's a chess game. You want to go back and forth. You want to utilize the macro that you have in the other side of the lane as well, the far lane usually. You play around that, get that lord advantage. But yeah, it does seem like right now, for the changes that have been made around the lord, it's kind of like Moontown want to force a little bit more of these skirmishes to happen, a little bit more of the bombastic team fights to happen, right? So teams technically now, even when you're winning and you want to force out the lord, you gotta do it. You just gotta do it, because even if you have the far lane, you have an advantage. Obviously, that's the advantage you can play with, but not as big of an advantage as you used to have, where you could just pull the lord back and forth, wait for that all the way. Now, it's even easier for the enemy team as well to just take control, take that aggro, so that they can actually just force it out. So yeah, I guess there's a little bit more of a comeback mechanic in a sense, right? In a way, there's more comeback mechanic. Because for the losing team, they don't get completely forced onto those errors, because they do have a way to actually force the engage upon the enemy team, upon the team that's winning, that is controlling the lord. I like the change. I guess we'll have to see what it brings. But me personally, I'm more of an LDE guy. I'm a lord dance enjoyer. So I really hope the lord dance doesn't disappear completely. I think we'll still get a little bit of it. But like you said, especially with the assassins and fighters rising up in the meta, it does seem like lord dance is about to die, because these tanks are usually the ones that want to take in the damage and then sustain back up. Squishy's they don't do too well, not against lord.
I'm literally writing down the notes of all the acronyms that I'm gonna have to remember now. Lord dance and SBA. Yep, Skypiercer, Abuser, right? I don't know how many. I feel like you've gotten these lessons from a guy we know very well mutually.
Yes.
Right? So we have that, but those are all good points, because really when we look at it, and not to mention, man, something that really hasn't been talked about like too extensively just yet, because it's mostly been the focus on like items, and I feel like Skypiercer alone has been blasted all over the online, interwebs, people talking about their love and hate relationship with that item. But like the other thing is like seeing what is possible with the new emblems, or the new tier, what is tier 3 emblems, right? You have the temporal rain, and then you have the war cry. And so far, like, there's been some of it being used here and there. We even saw some in the African qualifiers, but nothing just yet that really like sticks out that's commonly used, over and over again. And I think like that, in combination with once people are starting to figure out some of these items and building up around these new compositions that we might see, it brings in a world of like new heroes that come to the meta. Because already, like, you look at some of these teams, man, and they already have like big hero pools. Let's be honest, most of these players have such an extensive knowledge of the game that they're able to pull so many unique heroes. Africa alone, I wish we had a counter for it, because my goodness, like, just in like 3-4 days did we see how many unique heroes pop up. And so I think now where we are is, once again, like I said, I felt like we were in a healthy meta, relatively a healthy meta, and I feel like now this shakes it up enough for it to be even healthier, if that's right, like healthier, because of the fact that you have more variation in room, even when it comes to the draft now. Like, I think we'll even shift some of the typical bans that we used to see, where there's so much, Fredrin Barrett's bans out. You have like Angela's picked up or either banned out. The Luyi and the Chip, I think, is still going to be a dominant priority for a lot of these teams, a lot of these players, just because of the simple fact of utility, that it brings to the table. But I think we will overall, like, over the course of the next weeks and months, because remember, this is the road to WEC. For all these teams competing here for the Asian Championship, they will be going directly to lock their slots in for Riyadh at the WEC. And from now until then, that's like, we're talking like months, like 3-4 months. November. That's a minute and a half, basically, in my book, And that means like so much will change. I'm sure even by then, like, you won't be an SPA anymore. Everybody that's an SPA right now, they won't be using the Sky Piercer as much. Maybe by then, at least for me, as someone who doesn't, abuse the item as much because of just the heroes that I play, I'm assuming that they're gonna bump the price up, Mirko. Like, I don't think they're gonna keep it at 1,500 gold, man. Like, there's too much value in 1,500 gold.
Considering it's an adaptive attack item, right? So technically everybody could use it. Yeah, I think they've definitely gotta adjust it in a way. I don't know if they want to take some of the stats away, maybe get rid of or kind of I would say decrease that execute, right? Because the execute is kind of ridiculous. Maybe you want to make it a little bit smaller, like the execute percentage, before you can actually execute people. But yeah, the price would be a good thing to have as well. The price bump, because it's adaptive attack, everybody can use it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I was about to say Naisu for Mr. Building Man. A few months is a minute and a half, right? So only goes to show the difference in size right there, right? Building to a normal human being, because it's just a few months for me, for all the humans, right? Just gotta translate that for Naisu. It's a minute and a half. For all the other humans out there, it's normal time. Okay, nothing too crazy. It's just a few months. But yeah, it's crazy to see that they'll be qualifying straight to Riyadh, which will be taking place in November, right? That's the official main event for IESF 2024. So, very, very interesting stuff. A lot of things will definitely have changed then. I really hope the teams that do qualify, they can still adapt and change and, again, adjust. Hopefully they're not SPAs anymore, because I think if we have the same SPA meta from July or from June all the way to November,
there's something wrong.
Boring. That'll be kind of whack. Yeah, that'll be kind of whack. So hopefully they do change some of these things. Hopefully they also bumped up a lot of the other heroes, like the attack speed heroes, because I would love to see them back in play. Technically, they're not actually out of the play. I think this just adds more of a layer in that gold lane, because now the Clint is a bit more viable with the Sky Piercer. You have that burst. The Brody finally finds itself in a place that he can fit in, right? Because for the longest time, Brody, I guess after M5, we really haven't seen Brody pop up a lot. Yeah, he kind of fell off, because the early game control, even though it is still very, very important, I think in the gold lane specifically, what's more important is someone that can be flexible. Someone that can bring Flicker or Purify, depending on the different cases. So you actually have a little bit more of the escape to get out of these, full dives that is the meta. Full CC engages as well. That is in the meta, like the Tigreals, the Grok. So now that he does a lot of damage, I think a lot of teams will be happy to sacrifice that survivability with him not being able to bring the Purify for just ridiculous damage. So if they can actually play around the Brody, it'll kind of be like a Super Marco situation at M5 or even at IESF last year.
Yeah.
Right? He was abusing the Brody, man.
He was.
I remember. It
was him and Claude.
Yeah, him and Claude. And I think Saken as well, Indonesia representative that got into the Grand Finals. The only game he won against the Philippines in the Grand Finals was on the Brody.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get that Brody prio back, hopefully. I love Brody, man.
You know, man, there's so many options for the gold lane. Like, I feel like even in a way, there's still time for them to figure out what Malefic gun goes to the best, like for gold lane heroes. And that's why I think like it's great that, you know, Brody could possibly pop back up and everything, because I think if, you know, for the longest time, like I said, people were so used to seeing the Mozkovs, the Claude locked in. Sometimes you throw a Harith in the gold lane. But, you know, with some of the changes, the new items and stuff, it leaves a lot of flexibility and creativity that I feel like can happen. You know, and for us here, again, I know some people waiting to jump into the game. Well, really, because we haven't been able to, we don't have any data yet. This was like our first day on Africa, you know, when we started Africa. And of course, like they went through their own qualifiers here for the Asian Esports Championship to get to this point, you know, these women's teams here. But again, even if you took the data that they had from the previous, it's changed. Like there's so many possible new things that you guys can see, even if you are very familiar with these two teams or the players competing on them because of the changes that happen. And so, you know, for us, it's like, even, I would say even to go as far as like, even as casters, because I've been watching, you know, the other tournament going on right now, of course, and seeing and kind of hearing the casters kind of talk about all the possibilities that could pop up is always the interesting part. I feel like, especially for the people that like to, you know, nerd out a little bit on theory crafting on new stuff. And, you know, you can spend a lot of your time kind of experimenting. And I think once again, now as we get through, or at least we start the Asian championships here, we get to pretty much see what is their game plan, because all we can take right now is what we saw from previous IESF, right, from both these countries. And, you know, you already kind of shared your thoughts with that. And we'll have to see if their play style or like the general idea is still the way that they're going to go. And I think, because even so, here we go. By the way, going to jump into the draft here for game number 1. And that's the thing, like what is the idea that they want to approach this game with? Because draft-wise or bands-wise, this is already different, man. Like a Brody, like you were talking about, is actually going to be banned out here.
He does so much damage, Naisu. With the SP, with the Sky Piercer, it's kind of ridiculous how much damage he does. I think for the most part, you already kind of have an execute built in your kit, right? You already deal a lot of damage when people are low. So, you know, add the Sky Piercer in and you become super ridiculous. So I think that's a very, very good adjustment now with the Brody being banned out. But I want to give a massive shout out, by the way, to everybody watching right now in the IESF channel, on YouTube, because, man, we're getting so many Uzbekistan fans and Kazakhstan fans just spamming their flags in the chat. And it's great to see from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Great to see that, you know, they're growing their community here for MLBB as well, and they have this much support already at the very start of the day. So Angela, Mathilda also going to be banned out. A lot of utility right now, a lot of emphasis on the utility, man. From the Angela, the Mathilda, the Fairmiss, all the way to the Lolita. And I will have to say this, it does seem like, at least for my ranked games as well, Harith hasn't been as popular. Maybe because of the changes to some of these items and the changes to how good you are in the early game to kind of shut down the Harith. Because again, for the mages even, they can go for first item glowing one and they can already get that NOD, right? So yeah, I think for regen, for a lot of the sustained heroes, they are going to find themselves in a bit of a tough spot without the help of, you know, the early game usually where there are no anti-regens. But there you go, a Ruby ban. So none of the normal bans that we're
very different
seeing here, Naisu. Very, very different. No Harith, no
Chip
tanks as well, no Fredrin, no Loyi, no Chip.
Yeah, like this is what we're going. Oh, whoa, and Xavier locked in first pick. Interesting, to say the least.
Very.
And okay, we were talking about the Harith. Harith is going to be locked in here. So, that's the thing, man. This is refreshing. And again, I hope to continue to see this. Remember, this is a best of 5 for all you guys tuning in. This is going to be 5 games that they're going to have to battle through if they make it the distance, But you can see this. The Esports still a good pick as well. It looks like it's going to be picked up by Uzbekistan for that first phase so far, pairing up with the Harith. Interesting, too, to see how this idea of their lineup is already going to start. And then we have a Dairoth locked in. And if we remember, even with African qualifiers, man, Dairoth was insane. And that wasn't even just in the jungle. Like, that was in the XP lane, right? When we got to see that unfold. And then they lock in a Kufra. So, interesting so far, first phase here from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, we were just talking about how maybe these mages who are a bit more vulnerable in the early game, like the Xavier, the Novaria as well, maybe a lot of teams might not want to go for that, right? Considering how OP the assassins are right now. But it does seem like, at least for the side of Uzbekistan, they do not really want to go for an assassin. Maybe not yet, because the Harith pick technically already enables that assassin pick to come up. But it seems like they want to actually prio that mid lane a bit more. With the Lilia, you do get a lot of mid control. I think Aeterna's talking about how Lilia is just the best mage of all time, according to her, in the African regional qualifier. So I have to agree with that statement, at least when it comes down to wave clear, right? But the Lo Yi, something that has been nerfed, that diversion, the cooldown has been increased by quite a bit. So you still have the way to give a creative angle for the rest of the team, at least to go for a flank, for maybe an initiator later on if they want to go for a Kaja or perhaps a Tigreal to go for an initiation from the back. But man, that ult, if you use it just to scout now, it's not as valuable because there's a big window of opportunity for the enemy team to just utilize that timing to bully you. But finally, we're getting to see that Fredrin ban. Not in the first phase, now in the second. That's the bit of a change. That's the change that we get technically with the patch. But the Esmeralda too is a very, very interesting ban. And the Clint. So Clint, also talking about that earlier, I did mention it with the Sky Piercer. This guy with Burst is really, really good. And especially against the Harith, because on the Clint, you like it if someone initiates on you, right? Because you can use that second skill to immobilize the opponent and then quick draw. And then, yeah, your whole kit is based off of kiting away. So I get the Clint and the Esme ban. Those two bans are basically just to give the Harith a bit more room to play with in the gold lane. And so far, I think now the only real answer from Kazakhstan to that Harith should be a Roger. If they want to play for the global presence, maybe the Moskov. But even then, the Moskov just doesn't feel as strong, especially up against the Harith.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure what they want to park in the gold lane. This is so much magic damage being picked up here. Now that the Julians are locked in, I'm actually kind of surprised with just how overloaded magic department's going to be, from Uzbekistan. But this is probably just their game plan, what they want to do. They want to kind of build up. Again, this is where we get to see some of the items shine, hopefully. And the Yuzhong locked in with the Melissa. Yuzhong, once again, just if you guys didn't see it during the African qualifiers, man, Yuzhong was devastating. 100% win rate, and still a very great pick right now. And hopefully we'll see, a similar kind of concept being utilized here with Yuzhong, of course, from Kazakhstan and how they want to play around it. If you look at the lineup, though, from Kazakhstan, it's very evenly distributed, like magic-wise, damage-wise, especially later portions of the game. The Xavier scales up really well. Melissa, I'm wondering, because if I recall right, we haven't seen a great success rate from Melissa just yet. We'll see if it happens this time around. And Carmilla to lock it in. My goodness, dude, this lineup from Uzbekistan, I think they just want to end the game fast. And maybe even before the first Lord, or at least the first Lord count here.
And they want to do it with magic. So much magic damage. You already mentioned it earlier, but I want to put more emphasis on that because Harith, Lo Yi, and Julian. It's going to be so easy for the side of Kazakhstan, for the tanks at least, to itemize against this magic damage. Crazy magic damage from an opposing team. And obviously with the Melissa, with the Xavier, you're a bit more of a scaling composition, right? The Melissa, you need to wait up until those 3 items to be built up. But we have technically seen as well, in the African region qualifiers at least, for the Melissa, if you do get to a point where you already have those 3 items, you can actually go for the Sky Piercer too. You have a lot of DPS. Yes, you're mainly a DPS hero. You don't really utilize that Sky Piercer too much, but in the late game, you basically burst.
Well, let's find out here. We're going to be jumping into the first game in the best of 5 between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Who's going to start out on the right foot? We talked about all the changes with the items, the patch, and everything else. And now let's see how this kind of unfolds and gets put together. Also, real quick, taking a look at the emblems, you can see Haraif even has the focusing mark. So focusing mark going to even help that little extra bit of damage for this lineup that we've been talking about, the magic damage lineup. And that early burst potential too from that is actually going to be quite useful with the fact that, hey, we want to end this game early, and then they've got the 3 purifies, man, to deal with a lot of the CC that's going to be thrown at them from Kazakhstan. So very interesting how they want to play this part. I feel like for Kazakhstan though, if they could just drag the game out, you know, let's say late game. I've honestly, at this point in time with our meta, I would say late game already for a lot of teams is just getting past the 15-minute mark even. You know, you can see some poking happening here. And for them, for Kazakhstan, if they get to that late game potential, this is something where Xavier always does really well. His scaling is quite insane. Dawning Light itself is something like an ultimate. Anytime you have kind of a global threat, ultimate, very useful for any stage of the game, especially later on. And then, of course, just even Mystic Fields, landing a crucial one can help the setup, because part of this is overloading that damage in the physical department from Kazakhstan. So it's almost like a matchup of physical versus magic. Whoa.
Whoa.
First blood.
Dive
whoa.
to bottom lane. Traded. Looks like Hinata is able to actually get a kill back, and that's going to be worth it. Umino charges up with the Tyrant's Revenge, able to get one knockup, but now gets knocked up as well by the Enhanced Chain, and will not be able to survive. That's 2-1 early on to trade for Uzbekistan as they go for the turtle here. Likatizi already around, goes in for the Furious Dive and the tail as well. Purify locked out by Hirayat, used up already. Noah for an angle of attack right now as Kana will be zoned away, but now the Retribution comes in and it's going to be Kana who survives, gets it as well, Enhanced Sword to escape, and Kanoa will be forced back. Meanwhile, Hirayat will be taken down in the back line by Likatizi, who used the Black Dragon form earlier, and it will be a trade 1-for-1 turtle for kill.
You know, it's a good trade for both teams, and, you know, Kana really impressively able to get that turtle, kind of get out of there as well. And, you know, side note, the only one we're missing, by the way, is the Yin from the Jujutsu Kaisen skins here. So you know, I just noticed watching a little anime battle happen during this game. Haraif, though, gonna get spotted. Rotating up top. I don't think they can commit to that either just yet. So for a lot of this, once again, very good back and forth. Kazakhstan able to get themselves a little bit ahead. Zaman Force, okay. I think that's just, you know, to assert the dominance for that extra bit of gold. They might want to fight this one out still.
Yeah, Curse of Blood used up, but look at the damage! Instantly obliterating the tank by the dispersion and the rotation. Gets rid of Kanoa. So far, for Space Loves Us, she's able to purify out of the muddles, out of the go away, just dashes back out to safety. Another 1-for-1 happening.
Okay, well, tension on the bottom side.
Shade with Last Insanity up her dive, perhaps. This kind of takes the shot of the turret to give Hinata a bit more of the survivability she needs around his turret, but kind of is still hovering over this bottom lane. Will be beating up Umino in that bush, goes in for the sword, and goes in and knocks up Umino with the chain, but there's no real engage for now. Uzbekistan are playing it very, very safe. Goes back all the way. The Black Dragon form's used up as well. I think it's easy. Oh, good Enhanced Sword to escape from the Furious Dive right now as they look for an initiation, but he gets knocked up, and Likatizi is able to pick up the kill. Hinata goes in for the trade, doesn't have the Last Insanity. Now a dive from Kanoa. Doesn't have the Abyssal Strike, though, with the Curse of Blood. Connects on a 3. Hinata on the back with a flicker as well. Now burning down Umino as he takes Umino down. It's Amore who is forced to get back onto that tier 1.
Man, the lineup there, Mirko, was so good, and that's what I'm talking about, that Kazakhstan can do later on, especially as they scale up. You know, landing the Mystic Field, having the Dawning Light, and then Abysm Strike as well. You have so many lineup abilities that you can use and utilize, but right now it's still Uzbekistan able to get control of the game once again. They're going to go ahead and start up the turtle. It looks like they could possibly still fight this. Okay.
Oh, good revenge. Catches him. He's able to just walk away from the Furious Dive there with the Retribution, giving him enough movement speed. and slowly rotates over to the bottom lane with the diversion just to give a little bit more pressure back to the Uzbekistan members.
Okay, so at this point, it's looking, not snowball status just yet, but Uzbekistan able to get themselves a nice little lead, of course. They've got some of the objectives as well. They could work for the next one. We got to take a look at the items here because some key items are being locked in. Hinata just gets the War Axe there. You see Hunter Strike as well from Noah being picked up. And now, fight top.
Curse of Blood and Zaman Force. Now Space Loves Us doing some damage. Going back with the Synchro Fission. Chasing in. And the go away is enough to zone them away for now. What happened to Amore? In the bottom side of the map, it's going to be Kana who locks him down to the target. Lock from the stun. Gets Asami stunned up in a turret for Space Loves Us to get the last Synchro Fission in. And Uzbekistan now in the 5th minute are definitely snowballing.
As I just said, they're not in snowball status yet. Now they pretty much are. It's starting to get there. And a lot of the rotations that's happening in the placements they're finding for Uzbekistan is utilizing, once again, this magic-centric lineup that they have. The fact that they have a diversion they can utilize and play around with, and really just kind of even sustain through some of the fighting here. Now, again, at what point does this lineup kind of struggle, right? For a lot of the times when you're talking about magic-heavy-centric lineups, late game is troublesome. Hold on, Amino.
Okay. Amino's just walking up there, gets chunked by the dispersion. And yeah, that's the change that we have on the Melissa, by the way, Naisu, right? When she pops into muddles, you need something to basic attack. You can't just basic attack air anymore to deal damage.
Yeah. Well, it was, to be fair, that was a good change. They kind of needed to work with that, right? You can't just be attacking air. And so with that, I thought they'd be able to actually press the situation down on bot, but looks like it was just zoned out for the most part. Turtle's going to be up. Last one of the game. They're in a good position to go ahead and fight this one out. Looks like half health now.
Yeah, good zoning from here, right? But the Black Dragon form will be used up. Enhanced Sword over to the back and wins out the retry battle again, but it gets caught in the Abyssum Strike now with a good Curse of Blood connecting on it too. But Likatizi is forced back by Hinata on the X-Borg. A good Mystic Field to facilitate their disengage, and it will just be a 1-for-1 trade. The Turtle for Kana.
Okay, still, Uzbekistan getting control of these objectives and withstanding a lot of the setup potential. And it makes me wonder, Zaman Force going to be used. Dawning Light as well, but they just get backed off. It's a check for now. So that's the thing. For Kazakhstan, they're not completely, out of this game or anything like that. And they're going to keep poking at Uzbekistan, trying to kind of get to them to the point where, again, they can withstand some of this magic damage, overloaded magic damage, and work around it. Again, Asami, too, has to be the one that eventually gets to a point where you're able to protect Asami. She can pop off with the Inspire on this Melissa. Looks like they might even possibly still try to make a play down on Space Loves Us, but there is a Purify there. So even if, they get a great set from Amino, unfortunately, that Purify Zaman Force combination, and the fact too that Space Loves Us is 2-0-2, is going to be kind of difficult to get that kill. I think it's better for Kazakhstan if we start thinking about where's their winning situation, their winning condition for them. It's really just to get to the later portion of the game. I can't say it enough that they just need Asami to have those items locked in on this gold lane to be able to pop off. And it looks like, once again, this rotation might pay off.
Yeah, 3 men in the bottom lane here, right? Gets caught by the Abyssum Strike, but it seems there's a bit of a disconnect from Kazakhstan. Umino uses the revenge towards Space Loves Us, and Kanoa was going in onto Hirayth. Now, both didn't really work out for them, and Uzbekistan will be able to walk away from that attempt from Kazakhstan. But I do want to say, late game, we were talking in the draft that, man, Asami and Amore will have so much pressure in the later stage of the game when they scale. Meanwhile, Uzbekistan, 3 magic damage dealers, right? So if they do not actually create a snowball very early here, it's going to be tough. Or maybe like in the next few minutes they need it. It seems like for the top side of the map, Umino will be overextending, gets caught by Kana slowly, Hirayth, and also Hinata. And it seems because the roamer is down, no one is there to really open up for them, and they're going to go straight for the Lord. Holding it down now, the Dawning Light grants them a little bit of vision as Likatizi tries to look for an opening here, but Hirayth is doing a good job at zoning her. Hinata again with the flames, and Kana, we were talking about the Lord damage. Now we can definitely see it, Naisu. My goodness. if they were trying to Lord Dance that would be very, very scary for Kana. But luckily, Uzbekistan, they had the man advantage, utilized it perfectly, and now they have the Lord.
And that was the first Lord, Mirko. Like, that was the surprising thing for me. Just how much damage the first Lord of the game was actually doing. So you can already get a glimpse. Like, if you somehow get to games where you're like 3-4 Lords in, yeah, that's going to hurt, you know? And you kind of have to kind of adjust to that, because for the longest time, we just saw junglers just pretty much just post up and be fine. But right now, TZ trying to clear this lane, keep that turret up the best that she can, and it looks like they'll be able to do that. Now, for the rest, they're paying attention to this bottom side. Again, big item pickups being picked up here. Okay.
The dive right into the abyss and strike the burst is enough, and the dispersion and rotation by slowly into the Curse of Blood. The bounce damage now going back and forth, and now it's going to be Hiraeth versus Kanoa, where Hiraeth is able to secure that double kill. Right as Asami, by the way, secures the Sky Piercer, donning light into the bottom lane. But Hiraeth is on the other bush, is able to escape as the Lord just takes that turret tier 2 up top for free. No trades.
No trades happening. Very interesting kind of team fight that just happened in the bottom lane too, but you can see the power of that Curse of Blood really working, especially again once you get that first additional bonus damage at 6% from the focusing mark. It was just a ton of burst potential from Uzbekistan's lineup. They will go ahead and get a little bit of space to work with around the map. They still got to get that tier 1 down in the mid lane though, to kind of have a better time moving across this side of the map and the jungle itself. But so far, I gotta say, Kazakhstan has done a relatively decent job in keeping things from snowballing out of control. They don't have any turrets just yet, so they're at a huge disadvantage with that, and that's why Uzbekistan can kind of play around what you see them doing, where they're bunching up, possibly going in for a setup. They might actually take out Yumino again. We saw this top side. We got the ending of that team fight, that setup. But still, at this point, it's Kazakhstan just trying to maintain themselves in this game without it getting too out of hand. They've got 12 minutes in. But, at what point do they start actually winning some of these team fights and getting the favor for themselves? And even with that, Dawning Light's going to be used. They don't know just yet where, the setup's going to be, but they can't go further than that midpoint in the mid lane, because they know if a setup comes out, if they get stunned, if they get chained up, if they get anything, it's most likely going to be a kill right now for Uzbekistan. So, as I was saying, Kazakhstan really just trying to keep things from snowballing completely out of control. The longer that they stay like this, though, and Uzbekistan is just all across the map farming everything that they want to, it'll happen eventually. And that's what we see now that they're nearly 5,000 gold ahead. Still focus on this mid lane, of course. Might want to jump in and at least try to keep them at bay. Lord is now up, though. So Kazakhstan, how do they want to play this? It looks like they're going to go for it.
Yeah, they try to engage on the Hinata, who still has a Faraga armor. Oh, it's a 4-man Tyrant's Rage, but right into the damage. Kana will be taken out now with the Curse of Blood as well. Space Loves Us jumps in a bit too deep, but is able to find Kanoa. Now the Dawning Light back towards them, but slowly in that skirmish, just utilizing how clump up Kazakhstan were in that choke point to get the dispersions, the rotations, and the bouncing damage coming in from the Cursed Blood as they now look for the mid lane. They want to try to siege this down, but it's good muddles placed down by Asami to deny that away. But so far, for Uzbekistan at least, they will still be able to take that tier 1 in the mid lane. Kazakhstan, these Mystic Fields, these muddles are getting kind of out of hand here. Nice.
Yeah. They are, but at least fortunately for Kazakhstan, they got Kana down, so they couldn't result into getting a Lord, but they're going to go ahead and get at least that mid lane turret down. And so Uzbekistan to go ahead and kind of resettle themselves, get these buffs, get locked in, get reset, because they could actually now force Kazakhstan to dance off with them for the Lord. And it looks like they're going to get in position for that already. They did send Space Loves Us down on the bot to put pressure there. So possibly they have to just fight this out 4 versus 5. Based on the position, though, it looks like they might kind of go with that. You have Amino spotting out the bushes, making sure that they have the vision they need. And it looks like now Space Loves Us is going to rotate up for this fight. We'll see if they go for a stun here from Hiraeth. Not going to commit just yet. Dawning Light pretty much on a very low cooldown at this point in the game, almost 15 minutes in. So we'll see if that theory of late game is better for Kazakhstan does play out. Hiraeth, though.
Oh, He bursted down. Curse of Blood gets placed down. He is able to get out with a Purify. Now as the Black Dragon form is used up into the back, but the last Insanity now will blow them up in the back line. Now as the go away will be placed down, but the Muddles is not quite there. Good in the hash chain to knock him out, but he's still in the go away. Asami is able to survive, getting a double kill, but then gets burnt down by the glowing one of Slowly. And there you have it, another 3 for 3 as we get to the 14th minute of the game.
This is competitive. I mean, for the first game number 1 of this best of 5, how many times have we seen the team fights go where it's 3 for 3, 2 for 2, neither team able to commit on this Lord? And again, this is just the second Lord. Even when you saw them fight around that, Asami very well placed, you know, go away from me, set up really well, but then the Lord was actually knocking down on people, and the damage hurt, right? From the Lord alone, contributing to that fight, the knockups, of course, but that's, again, something that Kazakhstan can play around with, continue to buy themselves some more time. Asami is where she needs to be right now on this.
Sky Piercer's done.
Yeah. Is it locked in? Okay, there we go. We got to look at the items here, of course. Locked in. I was wondering where the items were falling into place, and it looks like just that. So very good. Has that Sky Piercer, Golden Staff, DHS, Corrosive Scythe. We saw the damage potential from Asami just in that last fight. Part of it, too, is just being able to position well and that deal with, you know, the magic damage. But it looks like Turret's going to go down top. Well, they're going to fight.
No. Very, very low. Last Insanity gets him down now as the Muddles gets placed up, and Asami gets deleted by Synchro Vision, and now Kanoa will lose her immortality. It's another knock-up with the enhanced chain, and it seems Uzbekistan out of nowhere, they're able to get 3 members, punishing Kazakhstan for walking up a bit too aggressive, and now go straight to the Lord. And this time, it'll be enhanced, Naisu. 16 minutes in, Uzbekistan trying to go and force the issue on Kazakhstan.
Okay, and that's just going to be a Lord taken for them, finally. I feel like, you know, that Lord take at this point in the game, Uzbekistan has to feel good. It's very rewarding. Everything they went through multiple team fights just to finally get this Lord. They're going to use the diversion. Just might send one. It looks like they send Hanada down there, check things out, keep things under control. They still have that wave pushing in the bottom side for Kazakhstan as well. So Hanada's job, cut that off, cut the lane, of course. Lord making its way top side. Kazakhstan, I gotta say, Asami, that last fight, unfortunately got caught in a bad position. That's so crucial for the winning condition of Kazakhstan, is Asami just living, staying alive. And even when you use the ultimate to go away from me, unfortunately, you still have a lot of magic damage that can be placed in there and damage Asami. So that's something that they have to kind of solve and deal with. So you're kind of thinking, Kazakhstan, how can they defend against this? It looks like they're going to hold Uzbekistan at bay for now in the jungle, while Asami works on the Lord up top and try to hold on as much as they can to the health of these base turrets as the tier 2s go down in each lane. So now, once again, Uzbekistan, do they actually want to force a fight? The problem with forcing a fight with their lineup, you know, they have to be confident enough to clash in. Usually you'll see X-Borgs kind of flicker in, or sometimes even just a last Insanity through the wall into the base, and then kind of follow up from there. But again, everybody doesn't have a flicker for them. You know, they're more in the defensive. They have the Purifies. So they play around that. But right now, it looks like Uzbekistan's going to be like, let's just wait. We can farm up, continue to farm up. At this point, we're nearly item locked for all we need. I mean, even for Kazakhstan, they pretty much nearly have everything they need item-wise. It's just now you have to pay attention to the team fights. How are they falling? How are they unfolding? What is the positioning? And most crucial, once again, Kazakhstan has to take care of Asami, because if Asami's gone, I don't know. Exactly. Once Abysm Strike is used as well, it's tough. It's tough pickings there. So diversion used as, again, this is the thing. You have so much utility, so many uses of diversion, but right now they're just kind of keeping it together from here. You saw from Slowly too, the amount of damage she's able to provide. Has the Holy Crystal, has the Lantern already, and of course that new iteration of the old glowing wand now has the Necklace of Durance passive part of it. So it works out really well with dealing with this possible sustainability that Kazakhstan can use based on some of the itemization they picked up. Big item pickup and power spike here for Amore, and there finishing it Slowly. Now also has the crown and will have that available. So this is a good portion for both teams to go ahead and just fight it out. Problem is, Uzbekistan will have the advantage in terms of the space to work around with. So Kazakhstan has to figure this out. How do we approach this fight? How do we get the vision that we need? How do we make sure we don't get caught out? Because even at this point, the mortalities are going to come online and get juggled around. So Lord's going to start up. This is a crucial one for Uzbekistan. Dawning Light used. Here goes the pull, Uzbekistan. They will get it.
Yeah, and Umino just goes in for Tyrant's Revenge. Even the Lord has been taken down, forced to flicker around, and maybe now Uzbekistan want to go for the chase, but
disengage.
It does seem like Kazakhstan want to just disengage, want to play with the wave clear that they have in their composition. Again, Amore and Asami, both of them have crazy wave clear, right? Asami, not in the normal traditional wave clear way that her wave clear is a bit different. You put the muddles, you zone the people who are trying to play around the Lord, and then you hit the Lord. That's the wave clear that she can play with. But then obviously for Amore, we've been seeing, you've been also mentioning that the Dawning Light has been coming back and forth, up on cooldown so fast, and now Kana, by the way, and slowly both have Winter Crown. Both of them will be able to get that untargetability in these team fights.
So once again, even with all of that, Uzbekistan in full control of this, and now Lord on the bottom side. Can Kazakhstan defend?
Arrive gonna go and siege down in the mid lane and the bottom lane as well. That enhanced Lord, and at this point, actually, it's an evolved Lord. We'll just be able to take that base turret down. Now, Curse of Blood onto 2. Good flicker out from Amore. Last Insanity, though. From the side of Hinata, gets caught by the Tyrant's Revenge, and that's going to be a knockup on the Slowly as well. They miss him, strike connecting, but Slowly still in the back end of the shielding now. It's a good Dawning Light to take Slowly down. With a good shutdown of the Mystic Field placed down, they have a lot of HP bars to play with, and they'll be able to defend up against Uzbekistan. Getting 1-for-1, and it's a favorable trade for them. It's the mid lane for the XP.
What a defense. I mean, they lost those base turrets, but the fact that they were able to get Slowly, they couldn't actually end the game like I expected. I expected Uzbekistan to end the game there, but it was too tough. And maybe that's part of it, once again, of just having this magic lineup that you see, the magic-centric lineup, and having a Harith especially. The Purify was gone. She saw that Slowly was taken out of the picture, and then they just didn't want to follow up and commit to it because of the threat that Asami now has, especially fully item locked. Anytime they get low, we saw it, the Sky Piercer, like we had talked about extensively leading into the series, how devastating that damage can be, the way that it triggers, of course, that execute, if you will, especially with an Aspire. It can get quite surprising just how fast that damage can be output here. So now, once again, Kazakhstan, even despite the troubled kind of early to mid-game transition they have, they're actually still holding, for the most part, their own. The biggest thing they have to work on is somehow winning this next team fight that's going to result around this Lord. And if they do, if they're able to turn that tide of the fight and win it, then they can start to knock on the base of Uzbekistan. I'm not going to say it's going to be game ending just yet, but this gets even more dicey because, again, this is going to be the 4th Lord, 22.5 minutes in. This is a very, I would say, surprising longer game than expected for this game number 1, with the way things that have been kind of settling in for the new meta after the patch here. So it looks like Uzbekistan will go ahead, start this up, and Mino provides the information for her team, and they're going to go in.
Good stun to cancel it out. Now the Black Dragon form into the back as Kana will be untargetable. Gets the enhanced sword down as the Curse of Blood. It connects on the 3 members. Now the Retribution. Will it be on point as Lika Teasing tries to deal some damage? And it's going to be Kanoa who steals it away. Good damage from Asami with the go away as well. Stopping any sort of engage towards her and winning out on the team fight for the team. Now with the muddle in towards Slowly, but will not be able to connect. They still have a massive win and an evolved Lord to play with.
Oh man, like I said, they needed to win that fight. It was crucial for Kazakhstan. Not only did they win the fight, they got the objective on top of it. And now you're seeing just how strong late game. I was very adamant about this. I was talking about this quite a bit. That magic-centric lineup is great, but late game, Kazakhstan lineup is going to scale up really well, and it already has, and that's what you're seeing from Amore especially. Just being annoying with the very low cooldowns that Xavier has, and Asami just unleashing the damage. Look at the charger from the Lord here. They might push this one in, the 2 of them.
Oh, just with the Mystic Field, that's a shutdown. Nice and a mega kill picked up by Amore.
What?
Slowly,
Whoa.
1 member left to defend. A Mystic Field deletes her from the Land of Dawn. 24 minutes in, and Kazakhstan, they're able to pull off an epic comeback in game 1.
What was the ending there? The damage? I first off, I wasn't expecting them to exactly end it just there. because of course, Xborg was like, he was okay, he's tanky enough, Nana's seemed like she'd be fine, but then the Lord came in, and then just in an instant, that's the SPAs, that's the Sky Pierce abusers out there for Asami, man. And I mean, it was one Mystic Field and then Asami, and this just automatically a kill by late game. And going back to the point, that's exactly what I was saying. All they needed really to do with the lineup is kind of withstand. It's like holding on to like the boat, right? Like right now here in the Philippines, It is storming outside. So that's what was happening to them. It was storming against them. Like Uzbekistan was the storm. They held on for dear life, and then they were able to get past the storm. And then they had the upper hand. And that's exactly kind of what they had to do approaching this game. Whenever you have, more than three, I would say three heroes of just the same damage type, the magic damage especially, that the early game is going to be tough. Like early to mid game even is going to be tough, especially with the fact that they had a Luoyi. And so, it was just a game of really just time, buying enough time for Asami to get to where she needed to be. And anytime the Xavier is locked in, he's going to be one of the best scaling heroes in the game still. And we saw it, like, especially with the enlarged versions of those Mystic Fields locking in, it became very difficult for Uzbekistan to fight in those, and kind of contest those situations, or even that last Lord.
It was just so difficult for them to actually go for the sieges, right? Because when they go for the contest, actually, like, they were able to get the first 3 lords without any contest, right? The first lord, I think there was a little bit of a contest, there was a little bit of a fight, but they were able to win it because it was still around the mid game. That was the window that Uzbekistan needed to get a snowball with, and that was what we were talking about as well, right? Uzbekistan, they had an early game composition, a snowballing composition, and also, technically in the late game, they could still prove to be, a threat in these skirmishes, maybe if they had physical attack. The thing is, they had magical damage. The whole composition, 3 magic damage dealers. Technically, maybe they were trying to rely on Hinata to be the physical damage, the sole physical damage dealer, but in the end, I don't think Hinata would be able to, carry on together just by herself for the physical attack, and that's kind of what came back to hurt them, came back to bite them. Because for Kazakhstan, you can see even for Asami, she sold her boots to get Rose Gold Meteor in towards the end. She knows that if she can actually survive in these skirmishes against just the magic damage, she'll be able to out damage them in the long run with the Sky Piercer, with the Malefic Roar, and with 3 of the attack speed items. So for Uzbekistan, it almost seemed like they were just always winning in the early to mid, but they were never able to end. And I think we got to give props to Kazakhstan for understanding that too. They know that in these team fights, in the 16th, 18th minute, they would actually still lose out in the neutral objective battle in the team fights around the Lord. So what they did was, all right, you can get the Lord. We have a Xavier, we have a Melissa. We can actually defend in our base. Wait for the moment for us to actually strike, and that's what happened. They waited up until that very moment where both of them had their power spikes. Both of them are comfortable going in for these fights.
It's the lineup, like we said, from the draft before we even jumped into the game, it was well-rounded. The bases were covered, and usually when you have that, it's just a matter of getting to the late game if you can, because even when you look at the lineup that Uzbekistan had, it was still, again, the game plan was good. The idea was good. The execution, I would say, even from early to mid game was good. It's just unfortunate because when you have this kind of lineup, and like you said, you lack the physical damage to contest in later portion of the game. That's just kind of what happened. Harith is great. I think that Harith, maybe now, I don't know, maybe now Harith isn't as OP as before. Like, I think it still is a strong hero, a strong pick in the gold lane especially, but you almost have to be careful now that you have, like you mentioned, the Brodies. Now we've seen the Melissa have a successful game here. The way that the itemization can work does make it a little bit harder for them to kind of deal with. And then, of course, the fact that now you have, you don't have to build a necklace of Durance anymore for these mages. That's why, you have a Xavier that provides like such a large kind of scope of abilities to cover this wide area, the Dawning Light or the Mystic Field, especially if it's enhanced. Boom. right? Necklace of Durance passive because the glowing one is already locked in. Boom, it's already there, right? And then it gets a lot harder for them to kind of fight into that because again, even with the jump in, like the way that the ultimates aligned up with Kazakhstan's composition was, if they layered it correctly, it's almost like artwork, right? They have they have the Abysm Strike, they have the Dawning Light, they have so many things to kind of just mystic field to pop off with. And again, I think that's why it worked so well. So, hats off for Kazakhstan, really keeping it together and staying into the game and getting through the storm, because that could have, this could have been anyone's game. It definitely could have been Uzbekistan's game one. But again, in this best of 5, they have plenty of time to kind of adjust and get it situated here. And when you look at it once again, I do have to say, because of where we came from, the African online qualifiers, and now we're here in Asia, man, it's still different. Like I wasn't expecting game one to go this long, and it was very well orchestrated by both teams, like the lineups that they had. So I just felt like it was very competitive to start already. Not to say that Africa wasn't, but it's different once you get to the Asian qualifiers. Even though we're kicking it off, even for the women's team, man, they play so good. Like the synergy is there, and you can really clearly see that they played quite a bit together, and they know what they're doing. It's very impressive to see them kind of just going with a game plan, even with the magic lineup. Like, I'm not going to hate on that, because it is a plan that can work. It is a composition that can work. It's just unfortunate that they weren't able to end the game when they should have, because when you roll with a lineup like that, you have a very certain window of success, and if that window closes, then you're going to lose. And that's kind of what happened there. So it makes me wonder, Mirko, like, what will the changes be from Uzbekistan in the game 2 once we get to the draft here in a bit? And how will they change it? Like, do they actually go with something that's more similar to what we saw from Kazakhstan, where it's like it covers the bases?
I think for sure something that they definitely need to change is the fact that, it could work. The full magic damage composition could work. But I think a physical damage dealer, a marksman, or even an assassin jungler, it really doesn't matter who it is, as long as you have more variety in the way you can actually damage, you can output your damage. It's really great for your composition. In the later stage of the game as well, you can play around it really, really well. Because, again, for Kazakhstan, they had just one thing in mind, which is the magic damage, even for the frontliners. And we mentioned this all the way from the drafts. For the Kufra, the Dairoth even, and for the Yuzong, they got magic defense, and that's it. That's all they needed to do. Up in the late game, especially considering, some of the, or actually, no, not some, all of them are burst damage dealers, right? No, burst magic damage dealers. It's a Harith with a Synchro Vision and it's a Mod Force. Technically a little bit of consistent damage there, but also still you're playing towards that burst, right? It's not kind of like a Lunox where you just shred. I guess the Julian has a bit of shred in his kit. A
little bit, yeah.
The first skill with the Scythe, Enhanced Scythe. But other than that, you're really very, very reliant on your burst damage. So an Athena Shield plus a Radiant Armor, and you're done.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to deal as much damage as the Melissa plus the Xavier combination. And that's why the Xavier and the Melissa just does so well in the later stage. Because not only do they produce so much more damage, right? It's a variety of different damage. It's a little bit of physical, technically a little bit of true damage as well, with the SP, with the Sky Piercer, right?
Sky Piercer,
when you get those executes. And
it's 99999.
Yeah, 9999 true damage. If the Melissa does get into the later stage of the game, when she has those 3 items, the Melphic Roar and the Sky Piercer, she is a DPS hero. But she might as well be a burst damage hero in the late game with the Inspire too. Yeah,
I was gonna say with the Inspire, and then not only that, but I think just the fact that like what complemented this really well was the fact that you had a Dairoth. Because you get some of that armor shred, that helps the Melissa do even better, like especially later portion of the game. And I think that's really was the selling point for Asami to shine later on. Now, it was still difficult, I would say, even for a Melissa, because with the magic lineup, like I said, even when you pump the ultimate to go away from me, like you could still get hit by a lot of the magic damage being thrown at you, and if you're not careful on placement. And there was moments where we saw that, where she was caught out or, whatever, you will go down and you lose a ton of firepower. Xavier's still great, but you still need time to like set things up and be able to kite, in and out. It's much better when you can just do that, set up the fields, and then let your Melissa kind of shine and pop off. That's really what happened when they were winning those fights. So I guess, as we wait for this game 2 draft, the question is, Mirko, was that game your LDE? Was that enough for you to have your enjoyment of the Lord dances?
Well, there weren't really a lot of Lord dances that game, right? There was a lot of Lord fights. I'm an LFE as well, I'm a Lord fight enjoyer, but
okay.
No LDEs, not a lot of chess games made around the Lord at least, right? But we definitely did see the Loyi get used in a normal way with a diversion to actually give the X-Borg a teleport towards the top side of the map, towards the far lane, so that they can actually utilize the macro advantage, the wave advantage. So yeah, but even then, Naisu, it does feel like the Loyi has lost so much power though. I think you can agree as well, right? Because in the team fight, she was still good. Like in terms of like burst and damage output, it's good. But in terms of the diversions, I don't remember seeing like any big diversion that was used, and I think it's because she has to be way more careful as to how she uses diversion because of the cooldown that has been increased.
Yeah.
Now you can't really go for the those crazy diversions every single time into the back, in up top again to give the far lane control. When the Lord is about to spawn in 10 seconds, you can't use it. Meanwhile, before you could have just spammed it. You could just spam it to open up the map to give your roamer a lot more space.
Juke
Maybe
them
they
out.
didn't have to deal with the Kufra as much if they had the old Loyi, but with the new Loyi, you have damage. That's it. A little bit of creativity, but not that much.
You definitely have to be more careful, like on utilizing the ultimate. Yeah. It's like, but to be fair, that's how it should be. I'm happy with the change.
I agree.
Like I will say that Loyi had her moment, and she's still good. Don't get me wrong. We're saying that like Loyi is still a good pick, still great pick, fits in a lot of compositions, and just diversion was used so much because of the fact that it was on such a low cooldown, especially when you got the right items, and that kind of had to be changed, of course. And so now you still, and if we go back even to those bans from the first game, they're very different than what we're used to seeing. And, I'm sure like even as you guys, I know it's, for all you guys playing and everything, we're going to be jumping into the draft here in just a second. I got word. There it is. Draft number 2. But going back to the point, I know you guys that play your ranked games, it's reset. So you're starting to find yourselves back in the moments where, what is the right bans? What should we ban? Even in your own competitive RGs as you grind back up. Well, we're going to see what these pro players are deciding to do, because so far I would say that it's been a shakeup, even for the bans, the priority bans here. And there's a lot left open that typically we didn't see open so much before. But now as we get through the bans, this first phase, Faramis is going to be taken out. X-Borg, I think, is a good choice. Again, with the lineup that Uzbekistan had earlier, X-Borg could work for any teams, like building it around. Again, X-Borg is such a hassle to deal with, I feel like, especially if you're one of these tankier heroes. But they just decided to go ahead and take it out. The Yuzhong to follow. And it's funny because, with that game 1, we are at 100% win rate still from Africa to here. So, we're still at 100%. I'm wondering how long that Yuzhong on 100% win rate can withstand the rest of these games, at least the ones that are streamed, I should say. We don't know. He could be losing on the offline games. But Madilda, also the answer to go with that X-Borg for now.
I think it's a good Yuzhong ban, right? Especially considering, last game they had a lot of trouble just dealing with the Yuzhong that was flying all over the place, getting a lot of these initiations. Or I wouldn't say initiations, I would say re-engages, because Umino was definitely the one looking for the main initiation on the Kufra, right? But it was all about the follow-up as well from the Yuzhong that made it so difficult for Uzbekistan to deal with. So now with the X-Borg and the Mathilda banned out, the Angela is something that we did see as well, banned out by Kazakhstan on the blue side. I don't know if they want to ban it out this time around on the red side, or they want to leave it up for grabs, but they go for the Harith instead. So this time, at least for Kazakhstan, right, they were able to beat it last game. Now they go for the ban onto it. Seems even with the swap in sides, the Xavier first pick seems to be the new prio. The new prio in the meta. Nice. So it's a Xavier first pick for both games. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting.
Oh man, makes me wonder. Like, is this going to continue to happen? Like, is the Xavier going to be continuously prio, at least for the mid lane? Interesting though, the Dairoth and the Lolita get locked in right away. So this makes me wonder too if we want to see a priority with an Esmeralda, possibly, to deal with some of the shielding, of course, and not sure if it'll change, but typically Lolitas go the Flask of the Oasis first item. They get the extra shield, helps the team kind of overall. Oh, wow. Okay, here's the combination. I was wondering if the Esmeralda would be locked in, but then not thinking that they would actually also pick up the Angela. So this is probably also just to take it away, like they could have played into it if they wanted to, obviously, like already having the Esmeralda, but now they take this, they have their own influx of sustainability and shielding. Interesting pickups here for the first phase overall, and I think it still covers a decent amount of the bases that are needed, at least for the early game. It still makes me wonder what is going to be locked in for the gold lane because of the fact that, we even saw the Harith being banned out, Clint as well. So I think we see this traditional kind of marksman matchup in the gold lane next. But Brody, maybe, yeah, actually he's open. Terizla, all right, Terizla locked in here. For Kazakhstan.
Yeah, they go for the Terizla. Maybe they would need a little bit more of the initiating power of that penalty zone. It's interesting because I thought with the Dairoth in the first phase, they would want to actually flex the Dairoth into the second phase, maybe XP or jungle, considering there's an Esmeralda as well. It's a good matchup for the Dairoth, but they decided to give Likatizi a bit more of the initiator, which she was able to utilize really, really well in the previous game on the Yuzong. So maybe that's just her comfort. She needs to play a playmaker hero, a playmaking hero, but the Fredgen will still be banned. Same time, this time still by Kazakhstan. Uzbekistan, I think now would be a good time to ban Brody. Because for the Dairoth plus the Terizla, those two heroes make the Brody so much more powerful, right? Because the Terizla technically usually is picked up by the team against the Brody. It's a good counter pick, especially for the early game, because if you do land a penalty zone onto the Brody will not be able to use the basic attacks properly. Like, he'll have his basic attacks reset in the early game. But later on, when he does get enough attack speed, it will not really matter that much. But still, it's a way to counter the Brody. And especially considering now they have that physical defense shred on the Dairoth, just like they did in game number 1. Some more physical damage bursts like the Brody would actually give them a lot of value, especially considering there's an Angela, there's also an Esmeralda, so two heroes that want to scale. If you have that burst, and for me, especially on the Brody, especially when I'm up against this kind of composition, the Angela and the Esmeralda, I love just going first item Sea Halberd, second item Sky Piercer, and then just penetrating through all of that regen or all the shielding that can be provided by the enemy team. But it's going to be two mid lane bans, actually. No Loyi, no Lilia, but they are hovering over Selena, Novaria, Cecilia. They're hovering over. Oh, the Gord! Every single hero is being hovered over, man.
Everything. What's going to be locked in here? Novaria would be great, I feel like.
One Farsa?
Is it going to be the Farsa? Burst damage would be interesting. Vexana, still good as well. There's a whole lot of good picks, of course, that could fit in the gold lane. Wow. All right. Okay. They just wanted to show. I feel like that was more of a skin flex, Mirko. Like, they weren't even going with mid lane. They just locked in Melissa, but they had to show the skins off. So, of course, we see it. We see it, right? Melissa locked in, still for Asami. Oh, here it is. Is this going to be the matchup, the gold lane matchup? And will we get to see this Brody kind of shine? Again, he's got to defend himself. Part of it's difficult, like you mentioned, especially with the Terizla there, trying to lock you down with the penalty zone. But even if it's a carry, this is actually, I would say, either the carry or the Brody. Both good choices. Carry for this instance, too, you get to play around with the fact that you have an Angela to help you out. And if this is going to be the Ruby, I'm liking the lineup right now from Uzbekistan. But they go, whoa, all right. Carry locked in. Roger, though, is going to be the jungler here for this lineup. Interesting. And what's the last pick? Will it be this? Oh, they just swapped. They must have just swapped is what they did, but they still had to show the skins. So Vexana, though. I think this is I think if you go Vexana, good choice against the Xavier, especially with the range. You can also utilize your Eternal Guard to help you with your tanky front line that you already have. It's an extra body, extra health bar on the board. right now still trying to decide what they want to go. Burst damage is kind of what they need too, because like you mentioned, Sea Halberd could be a first item you go for, and then of course the new items with these mages, building them in, and they do go with the Vexana. So good choice. They locked that in, and like I said, itemization for the mid mages is crucial. I feel like the timing is a lot better, to be honest, especially with the fact that, you know, now you can kind of flex it, glowing wand. If you wanted to rush it, you could pick it up right away, have that extra passive to work around with. But again, Dairoth is going in the jungle. How do you feel about the Dairoth jungle with this lineup?
I think the Dairoth jungle can work, you know, especially considering, you know, you already have the Melissa. So I think it's all about playing towards the Melissa. It's all about enabling the Melissa. And at this point, especially after seeing game number 1, I think they are playing a very, very good game. They play towards Asami. She's been phenomenal on the Melissa. As a Melissa main myself, you know?
Whoa,
I actually
main?
respect that, you know? Yeah, dude, I'm a 1-1 Melissa main.
I was gonna say, I thought it was just a 1-1.
No, it's 1-1 and Melissa. Both the highest win rates I have are on those heroes, and Asami was really, really good in game 1.
Well, let's find out exactly what's going to happen here in game number 2, Uzbekistan versus Kazakhstan. As we already saw, just the first game turn over its head in favor, of course, for Kazakhstan to work around this. And now, also, real quick, we are going to have a new emblem. We got to point it out. The Temporal Rain is going to be picked up by Slowly here, this time on the Xavier. So we'll see how that plays out. What that does is once she uses the ultimate, then she's able to get that lower cooldown on the first and second skill, of course. And we'll see how that plays a part in the fact, too, that Xavier already has low cooldowns later on. And then you also have to highlight that Hirith has the focusing mark, you know, which will help with some of this burst damage potential, especially when you're talking about a Roger jungle. This is what's interesting, Miracle, is the fact that we have a Roger. Oh, whoa.
Early on, just one more hit is all Ikatizi needs, but Hinata is able to pop that skill 1 to get additional shielding, but she needs to respect this Terizla in the early game, man. Terizla's a menace.
He is. So I think she's going to be fine, though, at least for now, unless she gets a Revenge Strike again. She doesn't have Purify now. But going back to the point, the interesting thing to this is the fact that we're seeing this jungle matchup. You know, oh, hold on. Oof. That was just
up top.
Yeah. They have the info, you know. Purify's down, Hinata stayed, even with a third of the health, and you have a Dairoth jungle. That was the point I was leading into. You have these, basically these assassin, high damage, capable junglers locked in. You have to be even more careful now at being a low health this early portion of the game. So Kazakhstan, the first one to punish that, and they'll go ahead and get ready now for this turtle. Waiting for some more level 4s to come online, of course, for Amore, and also Ligatizi doesn't have that penalty zone just yet, though.
You know, Ligatizi will be able to escape for now, but gets chased down by the Lycan Pounce, but now gets caught by the Abyssal Strike and will be taken down by Kanoa. Umino with the rotation, getting that stun onto Hinata. Now with all the damage placed onto her, she's still able to escape with the Heart Waves as well. Good Dawning Light towards the top side of the map, but a Terrify will lock her down with the Eternal Guard too to take Hinata out. 2-0 in favor of Kazakhstan as now they hover over the first neutral objective of the game, going onto this turtle with Slowly just hovering over as well, trying to give some space to Kana to perhaps look for the steal, but at this point it's going to be Kanoa who secures it without the retribution, and for Kazakhstan they get all the wins in the early game.
It's a great team fighting just overall from Kazakhstan, and you're seeing things kind of already fall into place for them, of course. No first items just locked in just yet. But like we've talked about even before, you know, with Kanoa being on this Dairoth, having that Fury Hammer just this early on, you can already see the burst potential. She's sitting at 2-0-1 because of it. And this is quite the threat when you're dealing with, you know, this lineup that Uzbekistan decided to go ahead and bring to game number 2 here. Kana really hasn't had the moment to shine the way she's probably hoping for on this jungle Roger. But definitely there's still time. Nothing's out of hand just yet. It's only about 1,000 gold ahead for Kazakhstan, but so far so good for them, because what this all relates to is Asami just having a good time. You know, having a good time in the gold lane, having that gold lane experience. But look at all these bodies here now towards the gold lane. It looks like they're all just going to scout each other out and maybe not commit to this. Umino does have... Oh, there it is.
Luminon Blast and the Flicker catches 2 right now, but a Mystic Field actually cancels out any sort of full engage from Kanoa, and they will just be able to go for the turret goal in the bottom lane with a turret shield as well. But the hard guard has already been placed down by Uzbekistan, and they might actually want to go for a little bit of a skirmish. Umino gets caught, kind of doing some damage, but the Muddles catches all of them. Terrify and Eternal Guard, locking Kana down with the go away, and here will lose her life as well, as Asami just deletes through all of these elf bars.
See, like I'm saying, the team fight, the push and pull between the two teams are amazing, and Kazakhstan's going to be able to go ahead and win that fight, get the objective, they get the tier 1 in the bottom lane down. But here's the thing, I'm going to say it the same thing as before, especially with the Xavier on this side for Uzbekistan, is time will tell. As long as they can continue to punish in the early game, and this is where Kazakhstan has to snowball and build up. Turtle's going to be up here, they're in position for it. So Uzbekistan, they could actually contest it, or they could just wait to farm up, buy time. Oh no.
Oh, full engage again with Umino now. Popping into the Luminon Blast, getting the stun down onto 2, but Asami places down the Muddles a bit wrong. Kana still able to get taken out. Full dive over by Kanoa with a jump, and now the Turtle looks like it's going to be taken for free. Kanoa already used a Retribution, but I think at this point they don't really even care. They're going to get it for free. The Dawning Light. It's a bit too early, and that's another Turtle taken without the Retribution.
Whew. Again, Kazakhstan just doing everything right. You know, at this point, really the way that they're playing and approaching these fights, even if it's just to get a single kill, back off, get the objective, you know, it's really showing the discipline that they have. And you can see now that the first items are coming through, especially for Kazakhstan, that kind of timing on this first power spike, if you will, is starting to build up. Because even Asami, once again, just has that corrosive scythe. Nothing too big, but enough to already be an impact, especially the fact that you have Kanoa on a Dairoth, and we talked about the, oh my goodness, again.
Luminon Blast right into the Terrify and the Eternal Guard, a combo wombo, just to zone them away. A display of dominance here, Naisu, as they use the go away as well in the mid lane. I don't know what that was for, but hey, it's to display a little bit more dominance, and Space loves us now. To be caught all alone up top. Amore rotating over. The hard guard is ready, but the Terrify connects and say goodbye to Space loves us up top, who gets deleted off of the Land of Dawn. 7-1 Kazakhstan in game 2.
She was hoping to at least get the turret. She was not able to, Mirko. That is tough to see. And so it looks like Kazakhstan's still going to play around the snowball. They've garnered themselves 6.5 minutes in. It's getting to the point where Uzbekistan, they're going to have a really hard time with the rest of this mid to late game transition. They still have another turtle up, but honestly, at this point, Kana's been shut down. She hasn't been really able to do much at all on the Roger, and a lot of that, again, is just the decisions from Kazakhstan, able to play around this lineup that they have, put pressure on this. And look at them rotating down the bottom side for them. Kana is there.
It's a stun, Terrify, Eternal Guard, man, the CC lock is ridiculous, adds to the Luminon Blast, and a penalty zone, layering everything, and now it's going to be here right next to the chopping block, because that's a dash forward, but they're unable to look for the kill just yet. Hinata with a Purify now as he tries to escape, pops to the Falling Star Moon defensively, tries to run away, but now gets chased out again. Umino with the stun, Likatizi with a few more swings at the hammer, and even Kanoa in the mid lane was looking for that kill. Space loves us, able to get into range, but gets zoned away instantly by the Terrify and the Cursed Blast. My goodness, Kazakhstan, the amount of layering that they have is insane.
Umino is just on point with the Luminon Blast, man. Like, even if she has the flicker or she doesn't, she's making plays, and that's going to be the turtle. Third one now secured. Oh, no.
Good model placement. Hinata going to be looked at by the Luminon Blast into the hammer. And now even in the mid lane, Space loves us. Will be assassinated by Kanoa as they look to go for more sieges. A Mystic Field gets placed down, but at this point, that Mystic Field does no damage.
Not enough, you know, just yet, not enough. And Hinata got punished. They knew that she got away with her life earlier, and they wanted to get her this time, so that they did. Now they'll go ahead and get these turrets still working across the map, of course. And that is even more dire now for Uzbekistan to kind of crawl back into this game. It's almost reaching that 10,000 point. Oh, this is, Kana's gone.
running towards the other side of the map right now as the chase doesn't continue. Good discipline from Kazakhstan, only sending Kanoa to go for this, and Kanoa will be walking up to the bush. Kana will be shredded down. Kanoa, they miss him strike and say goodbye to Kana. Here right now, caught in the sandwich, and they're all looking for her. That's a dash forward by Umino, getting the stun down and forcing to purify out, but the Curse Blast will still be able to connect. Now as the Guardian's Bulwark gets placed down just for dominance, and Amore lands the final blow. Another clean trade for Kazakhstan, 2-0.
Yeah, Kana, it took her a little bit longer to go down, but eventually she was chased. Even utilizing that Heart Guard was not enough. And that just shows just how far behind, economically they are right now against Kazakhstan, because we're talking about, 10,000 gold difference at the 9-minute mark. Like, this is very, very Snowball. Every time we talk about Snowball, this is usually the epitome of that. 10,000 gold before the 10-minute mark. It's very difficult for a team to come up from this, but it's not impossible. So for Uzbekistan, the biggest thing is, how do they farm? And part of that is they might just have to sit in their base, and buy time, because if they just approach this area like of the Lord, they try to get in the zone of it, they're most likely just going to die and get collapsed on. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, but with the lineup that they have, they don't really have the maneuverability to get in to the area, because again, look at Kana. Kana has had a struggle of this game, on this Roger. Now, maybe if it was utility jungler, you might have a better chance of at least getting some vision in there, but you can't at this point, because you really just kind of have to rely on time for slowly to build up, get those items on this Xavier, for Space Loves Us to get the items that she needs. There's so much that they're lacking in terms of being able to fight and win against a lineup that has this immediate burst damage and CC potential. So they're going to go ahead and get these tier 2 turrets now, working on them. Lord is going to make its way down the mid. So Uzbekistan, despite how far behind they are, I'm not sure if they're actually able to defend this. This first Lord push with this kind of lead from Kazakhstan could possibly end the game here and get them their second win of the series. And it looks like they'll get ahead and get ready to march in. The shields are going to be popped.
Now Blast connecting on the slowly, no rotation over to him. Falling Star Mundo connecting on the two members, just locking Likatizi and Kanoa down as the Muddles just placed on penalty zone, right into the Eternal Guard. Where did Space Loves Us go? Still with the Lord alive in the mid lane. They're going to go for it. Kanoa going to be tied up right now, as that's going to be the damage placed down onto the base, but the Lord has been cleared out. That's a good shutdown by Hinata, as the Guardian's Bulwark will be able to bounce up a little bit more damage, but the Mystic Field catches them, and the Muddles as well does the same thing, but towards the side of Uzbekistan, as Kana will not be able to survive this damage coming in from Kazakhstan, and they'll be able to go for the clear. Now one cannon minion in the mid lane to go for the end. Will they be able to do it? They go straight for it, but it has been cleared out. Another Mystic Field placed down, but it still does not matter. Kazakhstan will be able to brute force it to force us to a perhaps 3-0 clean sweep. It's 2-0, match point now.
Man, Kazakhstan coming out with a clean game as ever. Very dominant. Game 1 was a little bit closer and they turned things around. This time, 11 and a half minutes in, they just come out swinging for this. And it was, look at Kanoa. What a jungle this girl had here with this Dyroth. Just able to dominate. And that pair, man, I don't know if they're going to get this in the next game, because the Dyroth-Melissa combination seems to be quite the big damn
ridiculous
combo. It's tough. And not only that, but I loved how this also fit into the role from Amore, where she just utilized the Eternal Guard, was able to burst them down, knock them up the way they needed to. And like you mentioned in the play-by-play, Mirko, the layering of ultimates and just even abilities that they had played a big part in this, in winning those team fights and having this success from, the start to finish, till eventually it was just snowball territory and out of control. And again, in essence, when you look at the lineup, I like the fact that they had the Angela and the Esmeralda. Part of that was to deal with even Esmeralda, ideally, was because there's a Lolita there. And that's not even to say, how many times do we see multiple member Numnon Blast land? Just what an aggressive Lolita playstyle that I feel like as an Esmeralda, Hinata was not able to really do much, unfortunately. But that could also just be the fact that Uzbekistan just got too far behind too early on. And when you have a carry she takes a while. She takes quite a while, actually, to kind of build up. And you're talking about range. Like, the range just is not there on a carry. So when you're trying to kind of weave in and out of these fights, if Space Loves Us was there, you're dealing with so much layering of CC like you talked about. I mean, a penalty zone alone makes you worry. And remember, Space Loves Us had a flicker. So once that flicker was gone, you're down to just having a little bit of a dash. And then you're like, well, we have an Angela. Well, we saw what happened when the hard guard was used on Kana, and unfortunately, the damage was just too much, especially when you're talking about a Dairoth that is just stacked, So we'll look at some of the highlights here in just a second, of course, but so far from the two games, it really is just, I don't know, something has to change here between for Uzbekistan to kind of stay in it, because this is, once again, the highlights from this game number 2 here. And it's already started. 2 minutes in, you see them have that first blood. This was a good setup. Like, you're thinking, okay, something's going to work here for Uzbekistan. And then you have this kind of unfold, and it was like, oh, no, this is a disaster. And you already see just how well Kazakhstan goes in and out of these team fights. You'll see this a lot, where they kind of force themselves forward. They'll maybe drop an Eternal Guard to be that frontliner and then try to push in. They'll back off really good timing-wise. And even this fight, this is another good example of how well calculated they were on utilizing that front and then moving to the back, pulling Uzbekistan further, and then punishing them and utilizing the Eternal Guard. I don't think we really realize how good the Eternal Guard still is. And once again, Numenon Blast after Numenon Blast from Yumino, able to find multiple targets time and time again, whether she had the flicker or whether she didn't. She was making plays with this Lolita, and it's really apparent why they actually prioritize this. And again, Space Loves Us was trying to get that turret at least. But it was almost a point of the game where you're just like, man, you don't have many options left. The snowball's happening, and you're just kind of in this desperate mode. There's another great Numenon Blast. You're just kind of in this desperate mode where it's like, yeah, we got to get whatever we can, and unfortunately, it just wasn't allowed. I think Kazakhstan is very good at, when they do get this kind of lead, it's clear that they know how to punish it and play around it. And it was tough. Kana, I feel like, was just completely out of this game. She didn't really have the opportunity to utilize a Roger jungle like what some people might be used to seeing. And mainly that was because it was just shut down early on. And once you get this gap in the jungle against a Dairoth, it's very difficult, to have a better jungling kind of path and rotation to go with, and even to fight against some of these objectives. It took them a little bit longer to end the game here at this point in the game, but you can already see it's the same story. It's the back and forth of Kazakhstan initiating, pulling back really, really well, getting some of the abilities out, the ultimates out, or battle spells, and then re-engaging with the tools that they have until they eventually end the game here.
They have so many tools to re-engage. I mean, man, it's kind of ridiculous how many CC initiations they have. Yeah. They have the Numenon Blast, number 1, right? And then we'll obviously mention the penalty zone, having another big penalty, like a big CC ability to lock people down, and everything just comes together towards an Eternal Guard follow-up. Technically, everything can be followed with anything, right? You can actually start things off with Terrify, and then you get the Eternal Guard down, and then you get the Numenon Blast down, penalty zone, and while all that is happening, while you're already getting layered upon by CC, back and forth, you're not able to move up against that composition. You're just taking it. Then there's a muddle. There's a muddle placed in the middle of all of them, right? And the burst damage comes through. In the end, I don't even know if, the Melissa actually got the Sky Piercer, because it was so early in the game still. I don't know if they actually even got that, but if they did, makes sense how much damage they were able to do. But even then, it was Amore, for the most part, that was able to just utilize the instant burst damage in her kit to snowball. We didn't even get to see the Melissa do too much this game, like, unlike the previous game, where we saw both Xavier and Melissa do so well in the later stage. This was Vixana. This is the Vixana show. Yep. Amore was doing crazy stuff in this game, even without the help of the CC. When she's forced to actually use the Terrify all by herself, like the burst down on Takana in the bottom lane, the tier 2, like below the tier 2, she got a Terrify, Curse Blast, Eternal Guard all on him. force the Roger to run all the way, getting a hard guard, so technically force two members out of their own base to set up for the Lord and then set up for, you know, the eventual end that we got so early. And it's two back-to-back MVPs personally for me, for Amore, right? Game number 1 on the Xavier, game number 2 on the Vixana. It's a very impressive show.
And there's a reason why Amore, like, I don't know, again, if this was like a skin flex in the draft or like she was just showing, like really just trying to show, like, I don't know what to pick, because so far it's been 2 different picks and she's played out of her mind for it. Like that. So who knows? Maybe for game 3, she picks a different hero, but so far practicing her mind's out, you know? And that's part of the secret to it. And I think like either way, going back to the Xavier pick, this time around, it was first picked from Slowly. She wanted it this time. And, you know, even with a couple, like back to the highlights, like looking at a couple good Mystic Fields, it's great. But if you have no follow-up, especially in this part of the game, you can't do anything with it. The thing about the lineup from Kazakhstan is if they landed one CC, they had another to throw at them, or or they had the damage already available because of, we know that how much Vexana can do in the early portion of the game. I mean, that knock-up alone, on top of the fact that you have like Dyroth shredding you, yeah, it's physical, but like then you have a Terizla there, you know what I mean? So like early portion of the game, like there was so much follow-up potential, whereas I feel like with the lineup from Uzbekistan, Mystic Field's great, but it's not going to be able to do the damage you're looking for early to mid game. Like a lot of that value comes later on, you know, from a Xavier pick. And with Kana picking your physical damage kind of dealer early on because it's a Roger, and you know Carry needs time to build up, there was just no opportunity to really kind of get the damage going, because Esmeralda's not going to do it. You know, Esmeralda's not going to do it. Angela's not going to do it. So you're really just kind of relying on, okay, we have a Roger, we got to make it work. And I think that's why, again, it was such a good just idea to counter what they wanted to do from Kazakhstan. Like Kazakhstan punished Uzbekistan's lineup very well, and they knew exactly how to play around it. So it's crazy too, because when you look at game 1 to game 2, that was like a 23-minute game to a now 11-minute game. Like they cut it nearly in half. And so what this tells us, man, is like this lineup from Kazakhstan, like they know exactly how to play the long game, and they know how to not let a lead slip through their hands.
They have proper understanding of what their win condition is, right? When they get their drafts, like with the Xavier and the Melissa, they're able to slow the game tempo real down. But when they have the Dyroth in their jungle, when they have all this aggressive picks, when they can actually fight them in the early game, they will actually go and force the issue upon their opponents. So in game number 1, I was actually, you know, kind of impressed because they were able to actually weather the storm from that early game. Crazy early game composition that Uzbekistan had with, you know, the 3 magic damage dealers, the Julian, the Harith, and in the mid lane, the Louis. So crazy early game. The fact that they were able to play it so disciplinedly, look for trades, and mirror some of the movements coming in from Uzbekistan was already really impressive. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, maybe Kazakhstan are a bit of a one-trick in that way, right? In a sense where they want to just wait for the late game and then they take control of the game. But game number 2 basically proved to me, and maybe to all the doubters, they broke the theory instantly in game number 2. They were able to pick up the Terizla, the Dyroth, the Lolita as well. That was banned out, and now we definitely get to see why it was banned out in game number 1. An absolute menace in the game, and they just layered their CC constantly in these neutral objective battles as well. It almost seems like, I think for damage output, Uzbekistan definitely had enough damage to actually go up head to head against Kazakhstan's composition. But the thing is, that never happened. It was never a full out just out damage each other. It was always CC. They locked them down. That gave them so much more space to play with. And now we're back to blue side for Kazakhstan. This was the game 1 victory, blue side. They're banning out the X-Borg. So still sticking to what worked for them in game number 2.
Okay. We'll see if this good ban, by the way. Good respect ban that they're going to take that out, not let that slip through. But I think you also still have to kind of deal with the fact that we saw maybe that's actually what I was going to say is maybe that's actually the solves the issue. You take the Dyroth out, maybe the Melissa's not going to be picked up by Asami, because now for 2 games in a row we've seen Dyroth kind of be part of that combination. But even so, I'm wondering, like, Lolita? Because so far, like you mentioned, game 1 banned out, game 2 was huge for Yumino. Xavier is good. At least they get rid of the Xavier. No contention for the Xavier this time around. No one wants to go ahead and snag that up. So this leaves the mid lane options even more open because, like we said, Luyi is still there. Xavier has been prio, it seems like, at least for now. We'll see if other teams kind of opt for that. And like I said, leading into this series, there's still a ton of good picks for the mid lane that could pop up. So Harith looks like it's going to be the last ban to round out the first phase for here. Now, for Kazakhstan, I'm wondering what the game plan is, given the fact that, again, Dairoth is out, Xavier is out. I think if this is not a Lolita ban, they wouldn't, it'd be fine, actually, if they just pick it up first pick. Not sure if it's, priority first pick worthy for them, but so far from what we saw from Yumino in the previous game, I would say it's definitely worth. Well, there's the ban. So respect all across the board here from Uzbekistan. That they don't want to deal with any of those heroes that have been causing them harm.
They've got to respect it, right? I think, especially after game number 2, if they still decide not to respect the Dairoth and the Lolita, there's definitely got to be some questions asked about why they're leaving it open, right? They have to find a way to actually counter it, but now they give away the Luyi to Amore. Amore has been placed on the Xavier, on the Vexana, and now in game number 3 on the Luyi. So we've seen both sides of Amore. Late game with the Xavier, early game with the Vexana, and now I want to see that creativity. How creative can Amore be on a nerfed Luyi? It's still going to be the Terizla, though, picked up by Hinata. First phase pickup. And I wonder what else they're going to pick up here. Because the Brody was banned out so early in the first game. I expected the Brody to actually come up last game. But maybe because of the Lolita, they were kind of hesitant to actually pull out the Brody. Very, very difficult up against the Guardian's Bulwark because it can actually bounce or reflect all damage back towards your team. But I think now would be a good chance to go for the Brody. Clint is also a really good option, right? Just anything that's burst in the marksman in the gold lane would be great. But then, with the Lolita and the Dairoth ban, you've left open a big pick that was able to completely dictate the pace of the game. And also, the Melissa. Asami still with the Melissa, and it's Lika TZ with the Yuzong. It's kind of back to game number 1, but with a mix of that Luyi.
Interesting. We're going to have to see how they utilize the Luyi, like you mentioned. But this matchup, too, really want to see this kind of play out. The Clint versus Melissa matchup. We've seen Asami now 3 games in a row pick it up. And she should actually be pretty comfortable at this point playing it. Now, part of that, too, is still wondering, will the Yuzhong be as impactful, this time around? And so far, again, this is a 100% win rate hero up through Africa's qualifiers, now here for the Asian Championship to play out. So Yuzhong still definitely the hero for a lot of teams to kind of opt for in the XP lane. And responding to it, now to lock in and round out these first phases here is the Carmilla. That's going to be the choice here for Uzbekistan. And part of this is really, I think Carmilla, I know we saw her pop up so much. She's still like a top roam option. I'm just wondering if this is the right way to go for them, because I think the game plan here is really to play around, obviously, the Curse of Blood, and then you have a penalty zone. So if you're trying to layer those things through, you need some pretty good follow-up to deal with that, right? Clint takes a little bit of time, just like the Melissa does. But I think mid lane is going to be crucial on what they decide to roll with there. I think Vexana could actually fit really well into what they have, even so far, but there's still other options. And it looks like the jungles are going to be the focus on banning. So the Fredrin Martiz, and maybe they even ban out the Barretts here and some more utility. Otherwise, they just leave it at that. But like you said, gold lanes not being saved for the second phase this time around, since they already know who's going to be locked in there. It's more so of how do you want to... I think if I'm looking at the potential from Kazakhstan's lineup, and if they possibly want to sweep, like, their jungle pick has to be something that I feel like is more on the tankier side, and I think that's why you see the Marches ban there. Not sure if they want... Okay, Minotaur goes out. Because if they go with an assassin, like we've been talking about this going into the series, like an assassin jungler, especially with the Sky Piercer and everything, they could just play around the fact that Yuzhong is their front and set up and hope to just go all in. But it looks like, again, both teams are just, they don't want to deal with utility junglers, man. Like, just take them out. We're tired of it. Maybe they just duke it out in the jungle with these assassin picks. We'll find out here, though, now that we're in the second phase.
I really hope they do go for the assassins in the second phase, but technically for the side of Uzbekistan, I can actually still utilize the Carmilla as a flex pick, right? It's a good roamer. I think it still does fit in the roam a bit better than in the jungle, because we did actually have a talk earlier about how the meta has shifted and maybe these pure tanks in the jungle don't do as well as they did before. But still definitely doesn't close the opportunity or the chance that they could actually still go for that flex, because it has worked before up against this composition with the Lo Yi too. You kind of want to, you know, follow wherever the Lo Yi is going to go. But fast clearing is a bit more of the meta right now for the jungle, and they will secure the Baxia. So even though they've banned out the Martis, the Fredrin, and the Barats, Baxia's been left open, and it will be picked up. And now, the big question is, we get to see an assassin. We expected the assassins both for Akana and maybe for Kanoa. Now it does seem like maybe Kanoa will be able to pull it off, but Kana will be sticking onto that Baxia. And yeah, the Ling, in my experience as well, has been phenomenal. It's been amazing in my games. I really love how, you know, the Ling has been kind of buffed by the items. The Ling itself hasn't been buffed, but the Sky Piercer, he's one of those, man. He's one of those Mirkos, one of those SPAs, bro. The Sky Piercer abusers, but they'll go back to the Julian. It's unfortunate we don't get to see the Ling, but still, the Julian is still a very, very good pick in the jungle that I would really enjoy seeing, especially up against the Baxia, because you have a lot of deceiving burst, I would say. Deceiving meltdown. Because it's not even burst, because you actually can melt down some of these frontliners. The Terizla, the Carmilla, and the Baxia will have to be very, very careful. Because if they get immobilized, or if they get comboed into an enhanced scythe, they are going to feel that damage. So, last pick for Uzbekistan. They already have everything except for a mid laner. And I think, I have to agree with you.
What do you think?
Up against this kind of composition, the Vixana definitely fits best. But if they want to go for, they go for the safer choice, which is the Lilia. Just a little bit more mid-control, trying to nail Amore down in the mid lane so that she doesn't actually get those creative angles to go for the diversions. I think it's another solid choice, the Lilia. Very safe, too, with the black shoes.
Yep. I think that's part of it. You know, just having black shoes alone, Lilia pumps out a good amount of damage, not like anything like Vixana, especially off the bat, but the damage is still there. It is still a threat. And then, of course, like, part of the job could eventually be, let me just try to bait things out with the black shoes. Like, try to get something out from, you know, whatever it is, actually, if it's battle spells or ultimates, and then kind of play up from that. But still, part of this is utilizing the fact that you have this Carmilla. She's got the focusing mark. You can play into it, but you have a whole lot of damage potential. Actually, from both lineups, I think it just you just need more time once again for Uzbekistan to get online here. So let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's a best of 5, and it's a match point for Kazakhstan against Uzbekistan. Can they extend this series further? Again, both these teams fighting for a slot at the WEC 2024. As they will go directly to Riyadh later portion of the year. So now, once again, for the MLBB women's kicking it off today, will we see a sweep, or will we see the series go a little bit longer? Right now, Kazakhstan, though, with the lineup that they have, part of this, once again, is utilizing Amore. Amore has been on point so far throughout the series. And with this pickup, looks like they're going to go for an early rotation already down on the bottom side.
Yeah, Uriath, very, very early on. That's a Tyrant's Revenge, able to connect Dispersion and the rotation. So much damage, forcing to Purify, and even then, Amore is still able to go through it. What is that damage? Early game lethal ignition, Lo Yi Amore online again.
That's what's scary about the damage of Lo Yi. Like I said, she has gone through changes, but she's still probably going to be a priority pickup. And even with the diversion or not, the early game damage potential is clearly there, like we just saw. So Kazakhstan sets off once again, getting that first blood, and gets a start. Whoa, there's a response, though, to the Revenge Strike. We'll get a kill here for Hanada. So we weren't able to see that, but it looks like Likatiza was trying to fight off 1 versus 1.
Tyrant's Revenge into the sword, and that's the scythe that we were talking about, the enhanced scythe. So much burst damage, and say goodbye to Space Loves Us in the bottom lane. Still a good trade, though. in the top side of the map, and Kana is able to utilize that win from Hinata to actually go and invade early on. But so far, it seems like if you go for the Terizla, you have an auto win in lane, and Hinata has been able to get the dub here, and I think for her, she feels that's a confidence boost, right? Especially after getting almost solo killed as well by the Esmeralda in that game 1, Esmeralda. Licatizi going in again, penalty zone, another solo kill happening. Lika going in a bit too aggressively, and Umino is trying to open up for Kanoa to go for the retribution, and Kana very, very secure on it. Seems like Hinata will be the one to take it away from Kazakhstan, though. A win is a win, and it's a win for Uzbekistan this time.
What? I'm still kind of scratching my head. Like, what was Licatizi trying to do? She didn't have the level 4. And she was trying to go 1-to-1 against Hinata, who had already a lead, has that Fury Hammer above. I mean, they both have it now, but still, look how much gold ahead Hinata is. 1,000 gold on top of Licatizi. Like, that is not what you want to be doing. And now that Hinata has gotten herself a second kill, that's tough to deal with in the lane. You're most likely not going to be able to move around. Oh, Asami?
Okay, dashing forward, gets stunned up now. Space loves us. Not confident enough to actually walk up because she knows something is definitely cooking here in the bottom lane. Something's fishy with her dashing forward like that. You don't expect a Melissa to dash forward up against a Clint and a Carmilla. And she read it right. She read it real right. Amore spotted out already, walking up into that second part of the bushes. Now it might be a re-engage from Uzbekistan. Good Curse of Blood. Now it's Galway gets placed down with a good scythe. But Space Loves us still able to escape. And Kana picks up Umino. Now Kanoa trying to run away, but Kana will still continue this chase. And finally will decide to pull back as this is Uzbekistan. Water leading Dispersion by Amore, where she isn't able to catch anyone, but Hinata, my god, clearing up top to rotate mid to punish the mid lane by taking so many shots. A good penalty zone onto Amore as well. Now full engage with the shield unity. Hiraeth punishing Amore with a very aggressive diversion.
Hi, Uzbekistan. This is exactly what they needed for this game number 3, and now they're going to be fighting back. Very competitive at this point in the game already, especially with the fact that Hinata starting things off really well for them and just kind of shutting down Licatizi. So if you're Kazakhstan, they might find themselves in a similar situation from game 1 where they have to kind of just wait the game out and battle on through. Oh no.
You know, forced back again, able to use the Tyrant's Revenge, but now for Kanoa, she's not even able to secure her own purple buff. It's slowly who picks it up and steals it away. Retribution still up for grabs now. They can still go for this, but it doesn't seem like they want to. Hinata is such an overwhelming force in the early game. Kanoa hovering over. Kana will still be able to secure it with the Retribution now, and they zone Kanoa away from her own jungle, it seems. She will be able to walk up. Penalty zone! Unable to connect, just to zone her away from that creep, and Hinata, to add salt to the wound, wants to continue this invade.
Hinata, she is so far ahead right now of Licatizi. She just completely controls that lane, and you can see it. She's just dictating the pace and everything that happens, the exchanges. She's all where she needs to be, and a lot of the fights and early skirmishes that are happening, you know, if Hinata's there, it's almost impossible.
Tyrant's Revenge and the Rage, but is not able to really lock Uriah down as the Muddles gets placed down, but slowly is able to walk up back onto it. Amore, who's already rotated to that bush, is unable to really look for anything now, and it seems for Kazakhstan they will have to play it a bit slower. Good stun over to Umino from Uriah, forcing the Tyrant's Revenge defensively. And for both teams, they decide to disengage. No commitment, not right now.
This is going to find themselves in a similar situation, like I said, with game 1, where time is of the essence for Kazakhstan. If they want to win this game and win the series, then they need to stall it out at the pretty much 18+ minute mark at this point, because the way that Uzbekistan is punishing them, I mean, oh, look at this again, Umino.
Again, gonna be caught, and the burst just continues to delete her now. A good scythe, and onto Uriah, who's gonna be deleted, but no, she's able to survive just barely, and Kanoa will pay for that with her life. Uzbekistan controlling every single part of the game, every aspect of this game.
Oh my goodness, that feels bad, because she just completed the dominant ice, so she had a little bit of course, defense there, but not able to pick up the kill and then go down. Oh, Hinata.
Good Tyrant's Revenge and the Rage onto Hinata, but she's just able to walk it out. Lika has the Petrify, but even then, I don't think they're really able to threaten Hinata. Not here. Dispersion rotation, though, connecting, and even then, Hinata walks through it.
Yeah, they got to remember, The Body of Smith passive with this Terizla. It's kind of deceiving when, you know, she gets low health. That's going to be now the third turtle for Uzbekistan to go ahead and control. Asami.
Penalty zone, and Asami is still able to escape, but Space Loves Us wants to continue this grenade bombardment, connecting, and one last shot should do it. Asami taken down in the bottom lane by Space Loves Us. A good dive by Uzbekistan as Kanoa tries her best to go and clear, to defend that wave in the bottom lane. But meanwhile, in the mid lane, Umino is forced to flicker out. Amore trying to go for the dispersion, but the blooms again from slowly, diving all the way in deep. It might be a kill, and now the black shoes as well. Amore is going to survive, just barely 1 HP on both the roamer and the mid laner, as Uzbekistan used that to capitalize now onto the turret. That's a good dive from Kana, but is not able to find Umino. And like really a good trade there. Only the roamer traded in for the jungler, who is ahead. So Kazakhstan get a pretty okay trade in, and Hinata is still actually hovering down in the bottom side of the map now, as that's going to be a furious dive used up, baiting out the black shoes. And now penalty zone to lock her down. Hinata with the flanks connecting, and now with the enhanced sight and the sword as well. Hinata will still be able to flicker out of that, but the purple ball should be stolen away. And certainly Noah is actually able to retreat to secure it for herself.
There is moments here where you're seeing Kazakhstan try to fight, but they are just not where they need to be. And a lot of that, once again, is that early game dominance that Uzbekistan had, and really was Hinata. And you know, she started this whole thing, so good use there. They have the Purify for Hirith. She's going to be fine. But, you know, that's the thing. Like I said, if Kazakhstan wants to come back to this game, they're going to have to do what they did in game one, and they farm, and flip the game on its head. But right now, Uzbekistan, I got to say, they might have just learned their lesson from game one. And it's looking like they're on a course to closing out the game, if they can, on the first Lord. Oh, the focus, Hinata, she's going to get away. Even with 4 people rotating up top, and she's going to stay there because she wants to delay them from rotating to the Lord, and lets the Uzbekistan team go ahead and just take it for free. So as I said, Kazakhstan is now going to find themselves on the back foot once again, defending the best they can. It looks like even for now, they're just going to send Asami, go farm, get what you can. She got the DHS. That might help a little bit here for their defense. But right now, Uzbekistan, I'm not sure if they can actually end the game on this first Lord push. They have plenty of gold. They're almost 8,000 gold ahead. It's just up to the question of how fast can they take someone down here from Kazakhstan. We know Space Loves Us has... Oh, hold on.
Noah use the sword in front now. Gets the chain to knock them up, but a very, very aggressive move there from Kanoa. Gets punished completely by Uzbekistan now, as Uzbekistan are looking to just go for sieges around the map. With the Lord in the bottom lane, they decide to go towards the top side of the map, getting the tier 2 down. And even in the bottom lane, with just the Lord, it seems Asami will not really be able to defend that first turret, or that tier 2 turret rather. Slowly picks up that glowing wand. That's an endless battle too from Space Loves Us, and they get rid of that tier 2 in the mid lane. Kazakhstan in the bottom lane. Asami's got to be very, very careful. Has to go away and will be able to escape because of the go away. And Zumino jumps in forward. Now it's a good immobilization with the enhanced sight, but look at the penalty zone that connects into the back line, just giving space for Space Loves Us to deal as much damage as possible with the grenade bombardment. And Asami falls to the shields thrown. And now Amore with Likatizi and Umino, they are forced to defend in a 3v5, but it seems that you have dealt with those big waves, and now Uzbekistan will also respect that. They will back away. No more sieges.
Gonna back away. You can already see it. Massively ahead. 10,000 gold now at this point. 10, almost 11 minutes in. And just looking at the difference in terms of itemization between what's available here to the lanes, it's quite crazy. You know, and you could see it. Interesting too, Kana even has the glowing wand on top of, you know, she wants that extra burn. Like, she has the molten essence plus the glowing wand. She just wants to burn the enemy team. She's going to throw her body towards the fights, and just even with the passive that this boxer already has, she wants more. And it looks like with that, Uzbekistan will continue to find themselves on this side of the map, just kind of dominating it. And for Kazakhstan, really with the lineup that they have, it's almost... I don't know if they have enough to stall the game out, actually, because it seems like every single time that they're trying to defend, it's just up to Uzbekistan to force a fight. And anytime that flicker is available from Hinata, you can bet sure well that she's actually going to just force a fight. It looks like so far throughout the entirety of the game, she's done that. And even if that's a 1 versus 4, 1 versus 5, she will kind of just keep them stalled out, you know, from really just getting any movement across the map. And you can already see it too. She's quite tanky herself. Multiple tanky items. She never even finished building up that Fury Hammer. Dominance Ice there, the Cuirass, and she has, of course, the rest of the building that she can go. Like, she already, and you paired it up with the Body of Smith. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if it's 4 members, Hinata, I don't know if she's actually going to go down. So this is just going to be a Lord that's most likely going to be freely taken. Looks like Kazakhstan won't even be able to play into it. So they're going to find themselves on the defense. And you see them pushing at the bottom at least. Might just get that tier 1.
They can only just look for trades around the map at this point, and they have to be very, very careful. They might have to recall here. And even then, they might be caught slowly, just barely catching Umino there, and Asami is able to recall out of that bottom lane. But even then, even when they look for what looked to be a free trade on the map, it looked scary. Uzbekistan have the read on him, and now only in the 12th minute, Asami finally secures that golden staff, but it's a bit too late for the golden staff, man. I think for Asami, she definitely needs the Malefic Roar at this point of the game because Uzbekistan have some beefy frontliners, and for Kazakhstan, they're gonna have to defend this without that Malefic Roar, without that penetration. Space Loves Us hovering over, but look at that. It's gonna be Tyrant's Revenge and Tyrant's Rage connecting onto the back, and Space Loves Us will be taken down. We're still able to flicker out. Shut down though. Secured by Asami, even with the flicker, unable to escape. Umino soaking up a lot of damage in that mid lane from the glooms. Now it's gonna be Likatizi who stands in front, trying to be the front line, but the Lord will do a lot of damage and will eventually take down that base turret in the bottom lane. Another wave crashing down in the mid lane, and Umino will still be able to clear it out with the help of Likatizia. That's a penalty zone. That connects onto Umino. There's no real follow-up right now as Kanoa actually walks forward and hand side, dealing a lot of damage with the Dispersion as well. With the Curse of Blood, connects onto all 3 members in the back line, and Asami will have to be backed. Yeah, we'll have to back away right now. That's a kill actually. Traded down. Kanoa has been taken out, and now with a still buffed wave in the bottom lane, they might go for the end right now. The base is wide open, but the base turret will not be targeted down. It's actually going to be a comeback. Amore with a lot of damage placed, and Asami too, with the go rate that denied Uzbekistan the space to go for it. Asami walks up to the minion waves and gets killed by the minions.
What? I was just going to say, what a defense, and then Asami goes down to the minions. I don't know how to break that part down, but man, Kazakhstan at least stays into the game. Talk about a set of a lifetime from Likatizi to at least keep them in the game. So with that, again, Uzbekistan still massively ahead here, but they weren't able to finish it off. So at this point, you find yourselves for Kazakhstan having some form of hope. And you can see as you look at the items kind of fall into place, right? It's Asami she has 3 locked. Oh, there's the Malefic Roar. So now she has the 4 locked in items. But interestingly enough, too, you know, that I'm wondering what her last item is going to be. Is it going to be the Sky Piercer? Like, does she go that? Because Space Loves Us locked that in first item earlier on, and so now it's getting to the point where as you approach this point in the game, it's 15 minutes plus. Kazakhstan's been able to get that. They need another few minutes. Umino though might be in trouble.
Walks up. Tries to open it up. The shield unity will be used by Kana, and a few swings of the hammer from Hinata as well. But yeah, it's going to be really tough, Naisu, if they want to actually even contest for the Lord. Luckily, the Lord dance has been kind of nerfed, right? So yeah, for Kazakhstan, they could definitely still force out a fight if the Lord gets low enough and maybe go for a 50-50 as Umino tries her best to open up again. But the shield unity, again, will be used up by Kana just to spot them out, to zone them away. But this will actually give them a lot of time to force that top wave to actually continue the push. Diversion though into the back. It'll be read out right now, and the damage from the grenade bombardment and the quick draw will deal with Amore. Now it's gonna be Asami who dashes forward with the go away as well. Not enough damage to take anyone down, as that's gonna be Asami also falling down to slowly with the glooms. And that should be it with 3 of the damage dealers all down. Uzbekistan should be able to get rid of the last base turret in the mid lane and maybe just go for the end of the 16th minute to force us to a game 4. Umino and Likatizi still defending up top, trying to clear it away, but Space Loves Us now with the help of the Curse of Blood will be able to just get the damage down with the grenade bombardment and the quick draw. And now with the bottom lane getting targeted, Umino will be forced back with the flicker. Hirith and also the Clint will be able to focus down the base turret to secure game number 3, but it is just 1 point for them. Only just 1. It's a long climb
It's the first step in the right direction, again, to getting to that game number 5 and potentially winning the series here. Much better this time around from Uzbekistan to have the adjustments that they had. And, you know, a lot of this, I have to say, if I had to give my personal MVP, Hinata was massive to this win here, especially early on, just completely shutting down Likatizi. And by the way, that is the first loss for our Yuzhong, at least on the online streams, from Africa to now Asia. So he's not 100% anymore on the Yuzhong, but still, again, hats off to Hinata. She just completely dominated Likatizi with this matchup, especially from the early point. And even the Lilia was able to just do so much damage and provide so much utility, even just with the Ice Queen wand alone, you know, popping off those blooms and just slowing down the members. Because, you know, paired up with a Carmilla, my goodness, is that a deadly combination in the way that, you know, Curse of Blood was utilized. We saw just the advantage, once again, of this hero, the Carmilla, playing a part in a lot of the skirmishes and team fights. And it was a really good just layering of ultimates that was utilized here. And if you really kind of like break it down once again for Kazakhstan, the difficult part was the timing on it. Like I was saying, if they could get 18 plus minutes in, then maybe they had a chance to turn things around. They got around, I think it was like the 15 to 16 minute mark. And that's when they had their great defense as well. Questionable death. I don't know how Asami ended up dying there. It's just like they did not have the tools they needed to survive the combination of CC and damage being thrown at them from, you know, Uzbekistan. And even for Kanoa this time, I feel like she really struggled with the Julian. I almost feel like we saw one glimpse of good damage, like shredding potential damage with the scythe early on, but then after that it kind of fell off. You know, they weren't really able to play into it. And I think part of this again goes back to the fact that they had a Lilia locked in, you know, and I will take a look at the highlights here and see kind of how this game unfolded. But that's a part of it. Really good drafting overall from Uzbekistan to answer some of this. Because you see this, like we talked about, man, Amore, that early damage potential from this Lu Yi is great. But this is where Hinata just started things and then took off. And then Likatizi comes back from this and wants to fight again and ends up dying eventually. But this was a good play, good set, right? This is what you expect. Yumino has had a good game even in game number 1 with the Kufra. But this is what I'm talking about. Likatizi goes and fights again. This starts the snowball just in the XP lane for Hinata. And Hinata's impact, and I always say this with XP laners, they're the most impactful lane throughout an entirety of a game. And that's exactly why you saw this kind of unfold. And, you know, even with this, like, before that fight broke out, there was information that they were already on that part of the map. So I'm surprised that they went that far up just to get some extra gold. And, you know, from there, things got really out of control. You're talking about 2,000-3,000 gold at this point in the game building up. And you'll see this, right? Hinata was basically the front line tank for the majority of the game. You know, Kana didn't have to do as much. And talk about a change of pace for Kana. Going from a shutdown Roger the previous game to having a really good game here on the Baksha. And I even like I said, I like the fact that, you know, this time Kana, you see her pick up the glowing wand and it ends up working. That too, Harayev able to get away with 1 HP. This was like the start, I feel like, of like Tilt City, you know, for Kanoa, because like you just, even just to get your purple buff was such a struggle. It was so difficult to be able to get, and you just kind of constantly had to, you know, fight for your life for a buff. And you see that here time and time again. And like I said, with Hinata, able to just really tank a lot of that frontline damage, and it just took too long for Asami to get where she needed to be on the Melissa this time.
I think at this point, right, there might be a shift in the priority, especially for the XP, because Terizla has just been so good for both of these teams, for Likatizi as well in game number 2. And by the way, first loss for Yuzhong, based on the, you know, at least the online qualifiers, right? We're kind of mixing it in with the African regional qualifiers, with Yuzhong still stuck at 100% win rate. But yeah, first time that we are seeing a Yuzhong actually lose out. And in the later stage of the game, we did see a few possible ways that they could actually come back in the game, right? They were able to catch Space Love Sus, but then I would say they got way too greedy. After that kill, they should have just played it way safer, especially considering, you know, there's still a Carmilla on the enemy team. There's still going to be a lot of big CCs and a lot of damage that could actually come back towards them. But even then, they were able to somehow just force that Curse of Blood out earlier, rotate back to the fountain. But here, this was the mistake that you were talking about. Asami, oh, you hate to see it. You already mentioned the tilt, and I think that definitely got to them. And in the end, they definitely went for a very aggressive maneuver into the bush there with a diversion. And unfortunately for Kanoa, I think he was outside of the bush. So that's what gave Space Loves Us the information to actually back away and to force those two members to either fight or die. Because that's all they could do, right? Either they run away and die anyways, and, you know, again, everything would just go the same way as we did see right here. Or they look for the fight, and maybe something turned out right for them and they could actually take the game. But it didn't pay off. Not the Luo Yi pick. And based on the 2 games that we've seen Luo Yi, with the increased duration or the increased cooldown, it hasn't really been a great pick. It hasn't really been that same pick that we saw before that could dictate the matchup, that could dictate the pace of the game all from the first, well, when you get level 4. You can instantly dictate the game back then, before the patch. Now after the patch, it seems you're kind of just... It even seems readable, Naisu, you know, at this point. Very readable with her diversions.
It's, I mean, the way... Like I said, Luo Yi, even when we saw her get that first blood kill, pop off the damage, still very impactful, like as a hero, I think, but it seems like the change, at least the threat of the diversion, has been, you know, catered to. And I think that's part of the reason overall, in like the grand scheme of things when it comes to an entire game, like that change is very apparent, because you're not seeing these like crazy mind-changing diversion plays that we're used to seeing, you know, and also part of that could just be the way that the team is using it. And I mean, the cooldown obviously being longer does play a part, but so far and I feel like when you're playing against a Terizla, who, I agree, is going to probably rise up in popularity, is just one of those very punishing XP heroes that can do a lot for a team. Like I said, the penalty zone alone is actually, now we've seen it multiple times in different compositions, do really well for teams that kind of play around that. And having that penalty zone, and then I think Carmilla as well. I know we mentioned that possibly Carmilla could still fit in the jungle well, but even as a roam, and then you roll with the Purify, like if your placements are good and you're able to kind of layer things well, you saw how much effect the Curse of Blood had later on in those team fights that were in the base, especially when it looked like there was maybe a moment of hope for Kazakhstan to keep things together in the base and everything. Once a good Curse of Blood landed, and then they were left to pretty much just like getting linked up and taking all this damage, like they just had to run away. And unfortunately, with the lineup that Kazakhstan had, like this lineup, if you're running away, you're just going to get collapsed on, because, you know, even for the Melissa, like a lot of times when you saw Asami try to set up to go away, like she would still be there trying to fight, and even in that the safety of the ultimate, she would get blown up, you know. And so it was just too tough, especially once again for Kanoa this time with the Julian. I'm almost wondering like what would have been different if, Mirko, we did see the Ling come through. Maybe we get to see it for game 4. I'm really wondering if she's got it up her sleeve, like, and you know, this is a pick that she can play confidently for this series, because as good as the Julian can be, and we've seen, you know, some good Julian players, especially in your region, I just don't know if that, with this lineup that we were already seeing, I wouldn't have thought of bringing the Julian first. Like the Ling would have made sense, sure, like go the Ling, because at least that way you can also like really contest around the map. And I feel like that was something that was lacking here, where a lot of the rotation, and maybe again, this is why they were relying on diversion, but because they couldn't do that and rotate as fast or respond as fast, they had a hard time. And that's the thing about Julian. Once you have your abilities, they're used up, you're kind of just running backwards. You know, at least for Ling, you could stall out a little bit. You can finch poise around, you know, the way that it's played. It just really depends on the player. But I think really when you break it down, lineup for them, it just wasn't as good this game, at least from what we've seen from the previous 2 games that got them to match point. And the answer or the response this time around from Uzbekistan was really good. And it just really, honestly, it just really started with Hanada. So Hanada, if she can replicate what she did here in this first game, or in this game number 3, with the Terizla or any XP lane that she brings to the table, it's going to be very difficult for Likatizi, and I think just they could snowball through that alone, because Hanada, what a game changer that was for game 3, and just allowed them to really do their thing and get things on the right foot.
And if you want a fun fact, right, for everybody watching back at home, since we started the African regional qualifiers and now we have moved on to the Asian qualifiers, we've not gotten a single full series just yet. And this is the closest we've gotten to a full series, right? It's the best of 5. It's currently 2-1. So can Uzbekistan actually force out a full best of 5 going all 5 games? Because we've been waiting for that night. So, you know, at this point, we're kind of overdue a best of 5 going all the way, right? We've been going through so many best of 3s that has gone 2-0s. So maybe, just maybe, the first best of 5 that we get to cast will be a full series. We'll see though if that actually comes true, because again, for Kazakhstan, I think there were a lot of just minor mistakes that were made in the draft, and those minor mistakes can be fixed up very, very easily. And in the game as well, I think they got way too aggressive in that game, right? But I think we're gonna just jump into the drafts, by the way, as I complete my point. They got way too aggressive. I think it might be overconfidence, right? After game number 1 and game number 2, where at game number 1 they were able to prolong the game, weather the storm, and game number 2 they were able to just steamroll and snowball all the way from the start. They definitely got overconfident, because in game number 3, that composition was more of a scaling comp, right? In the early game, you do have a little bit of that power spike because you have so much base damage. But in the mid game, you actually want to tone it down a bit with the Julian, the Melissa, and even the Lo Yi to a certain extent, especially considering the Yu Zhang was already so behind. But maybe because they kept on winning in game 1 and game 2, they thought, might as well just try to out team fight them every single time. But now, for Uzbekistan, they have the blueprint. They have the ban phase in the first phase, at least, to take out Kazakhstan's strengths, right? It's the Dairoth and the Xavier. Those are the main bans that we've seen, even last game.
Okay, interesting. And I like the Carmilla ban this time around, because I feel like Curse of Blood has been probably like a thorn in their side. It's literally been a curse for them to kind of like deal with and work around. So I like that they went this way. Also, we got word that we are going to be, I believe, overlapping Hong Kong, China versus Mongolia. So we will go ahead and get some updates on that we can let you guys know. But right now, as we focus on this best of 5, because of what's at stake here, of course, for this best of 5, it's interesting, because if it goes 5 games, you know very well, I should say, at least from what we've seen from the previous games, that it could very well go 5 games. Like, I remember watching game 1. If you guys missed game 1, you're just joining us. It right away was a 23+ minute game. And, you know, typically so far in the meta with some of the changes, like, we're used to seeing rather quicker games. Oh, but here we go. Don't change what just happened with Hanada. Locked in the Terizla. She had a monster of a game there. She's going to look to replicate the same thing. She's even fine with Likatizi picking up the Yuzhong if she decides to dare pick it up. That's what I think Hanada's probably, you know, thinking or saying. But then again, something that surprises me is some of the what if. I mean, it's good that they took out the Dairoth, right? But what else can go against the Terizla? Because Exborg was banned out, and Dairoth. Dairoth is usually a good pickup in the Terizla. Remember, we used to see Terizla and Dairoth pick up in XP lane all the time. But before you answer that, there's the Fredrin and the Clint gets locked in.
What was your question again, Naisu?
What's the best pick right now you think of versus Terizla in the XP lane? What would you pick up in that matchup?
I think if it's just to go up against the Terizla, it would be something like an Exborg, actually. Something that I mean, technically for the Exborg, you can outrange the Terizla, and you can play outside of the range of that hammer, so you can actually win out the lane in that way, especially considering the Baksha is also up for grabs and will be taken up by Kana, and at this point, also the Harith, right? So much sustain being played with by the side of Uzbekistan. The Exborg ban, definitely... They could have actually used the Exborg here, but with it being banned out, I would still say the Yuzhong makes sense. Maybe not against the Baksha, but against the Terizla. I think it was just the way that Likatizi played the Yuzhong that was a bit off, right? Because she was brawling, dueling the Terizla all the way from the start, and on the Yuzhong, you don't want to do that against the Terizla. You want to wait for level 4, go for the contest onto the neutral objective, and try to get more value than the Terizla. Because the Terizla, sure, can go for the penalty zone, instant initiation, good burst damage with the base damage that he has in the early game, but the prolonged fights, Yu Zhang still actually does better, and you can actually threaten the backline way better compared to a Terizla. But at this point, I think the Yu Zhang might just be banned away at this point, right? Like, they might want to just take it away, considering the Fredgen has already been picked up. Last time they went for the Martis ban and just 2 jungle bans, so now with the XP being up for grabs, was still being available, I think the 2 XP bans would make sense. And they already banned Esmeralda, so they're enabling the Harith. Next would probably be the Yu Zhang. Take that sustainability, that long team fight power away from Kazakhstan and force Likatizi on a hero maybe that she's not comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm wondering what that is going to be, though. Like, I almost don't feel like... I feel like they're just fine. Like, if it is going to be a Yu Zhang pick, like, they don't ban this out, they don't take it out. It's like Hanada just being confident after what happened in the previous game that is like, you know, I'll face off and get an XP lane, deal with it, because these are actually already pretty good picks based off what they just did in the previous game. I mean, even the Baksha, way better here for Kana than the previous one, and, you know, able to build up on that and around that. Faramis is going to be the ban. That's a hero that kind of slipped my mind, but we have seen this ban multiple times now throughout the series, so we'll see what the answer is going to be. It looks like they need, I'm not sure if they want to lock in the mid lane now. They already have that roam, and of course we're waiting for that XP, so this could just be Yu Zhang picked up to the challenge, but they go with the mid instead. They're going to lock in this Vexana pick. Already this lineup that Kazakhstan has is very tanky and able to provide a lot of CC potential. Could this actually be locked in? I know we talked a decent amount about Chang'e, especially with the way that she's built now. It makes me wonder, like, how are they going to build it here? Is this going to be your typical, like, mage Chang'e, or is it going to be, I don't know what you want to call the
marksman build?
The marksman build, the fun build.
The pseudo marksman build, yeah, the fun build with the Feather of Heaven into the Golden Staff. We have seen the DHS as well come up. I think for
Chang'e's
I actually asked
Sky
Lafel,
Piercer,
right, because Innocent, Sky Piercer. Oh, that's an interesting one, right? That definitely adds layer into the Chang'e pick. But I think now it should be used as just a normal mid lane, right? Because it is going to be in the mid lane. Up against Amore as well, it'll be very, very tough to actually utilize the basic attack build up against someone like a Vexana. Because the Vexana can actually just force out the Terrify on you if you walk close. And Chang'e doesn't really have a lot of range. Like, her range in terms of basic attack, right? With the Meteor Shower, yeah, you have a lot of range. That's massive range. But on the basic attack, not so much. You can actually be punished by the Minotaur, especially with the Vexana. But now I think they just need a setter. I think something like an Arlet could actually also work out, by the way. They have so much CC. They have like an overload amount of CC with the Fredrin, Minotaur, and the Vexana. I think they'll find a lot of value on that, but they could just go with the good old Yu Zhang and try to play it differently in game number 4 compared to game number 3. And I think, personally, I like this. That's why I thought the Yu Zhang would actually be banned out, because the Yu Zhang pick is still really, really good. It's just the way that you play it needs to be a bit different up against a lane bully. It isn't the same matchup against the Esmeralda, right? And maybe the change of skin from Likatizi means that she will also change her playstyle a bit.
It's a new page, basically, right? You know, you can go with it that way. But I think it's just the concept of, literally. I feel like after that, Likatizi probably wants a do-over. And we'll see if she plays a little more, you know, conservative, especially before that level 4 becomes available. Surely, you know, Yu Zhang can bully too, but this is a classic matchup too, the Yu Zhang versus the Trizla, as we get a look once again of this lineup. We'll have to see, really, if there is an answer to deal with what we saw previously from Uzbekistan, but it's all going to come down to possibly this, unless Uzbekistan extends the series to that final 5th game. We'll see if they can pull it off. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MLBB Women's Asian Championships. It's the road, actually, to the WEC, as these teams are battling out for their spot for Riyadh, the WEC. And it starts once again today with us with this matchup. And it's come down to game 4. So far, both teams are back and forth throughout the series. And now it's come down to this one. Once again, if Kazakhstan can deal with this lineup that they have and I would say even keep things together a little bit better than they have in the previous game, then they're going to be off to a good start. Part of that too is Fredrin, man. We've seen Fredrin just not pop up as we used to. I know I even jokingly said it was refreshing to see him in the African qualifiers come out. You know, that was a half joke, but he's back now.
He's back now, and I hope he's back with actually like a good impact in the game, right? Because it would suck to see the Fredrin, especially after the patch. Like, we haven't seen him at all. Actually, we have seen him just a bit in the African qualifiers, but we've seen him in so little games that I want to see the impact that the Fredrin can give as well now, right? That massive impact in the neutral objectives. For Kanoa, she actually decided to go for the concussive blast, so trying to match the clear speed of Kana, but obviously Kana is going to have an overwhelming advantage when it comes to that. And now we see a little bit of an engage with the Petrify, and the Furies dive into the Appraiser's Wrath. Kana still able to survive for a bit, but the first blood will be picked up by Lika Tizia this time with a follow on to Kanoa. That's another taunt in onto the knockup, and Hinata this time will be forced to flicker out, and already a rotation from Amore as well from the mid lane. That's going to be a knockup from the side of Umino, and Hirai tries to punish her here with a rotation from Hinata as well. They're actually doing a lot of damage with the basic attacks. Umino forced to flicker out, gets the dash, and is able to escape. And now Kazakhstan will actually be the ones, despite getting the kill early, to be at a man disadvantage. Also, take a look at the side of Amore, right? Was able to deal a lot of damage. Black Dragon form used up, now onto Kana, trying to go for the setup right now and dives in on the slowly with the Dragon Tail too. Now looking for the Furious Dive to knock up, but Kana still able to get the Retribution down. A good Terrify, but the penalty zone connects onto the back, and Hinata will be able to swing the hammer 2 times onto the third, now onto Amore to get her down. A good Appraiser's Wrap from Kanoa though, now turning it around, getting the taunt down in the Minus Fury, knocks them up, and that's a trade down once again as Hirai and Hinata continue this chase. A good Tyrant's Revenge now as Lika Tizia is forced to rotate back again onto Hirai, but Umino is still able to escape, gets a dash as well. Now the chase onto Hirai, who pops in the bouncing ball to get a little bit more mobility as Umino pops in that motivation roar and is able to escape. What a crazy fight in the first 2 minutes.
What a fight. Take a breath, because holy moly. That was like a 1.5 minute fight, just all from start to finish, even before the turtle, just duking it out. So with that, again, you still saw how much damage actually Appraiser's Wrath can even provide through with this Fredrin. Picks up the Molten Essence early on, but it just looks like, once again, you know, Uzbekistan answered really well with the pressure that was being put forth on them. They did get the objective, so they secured that, and really, there's no big gold difference. There's a lot of bodies on the top of lane, though, possibly trying to look for a play up there on the gold lane, but so far, they're just going to kind of stall things out, keep it together for now. There was a whole lot exchanges on the bottom side. They're 30 seconds away from the next objective. And so with that, it looks like Uzbekistan might look to make a play. Again, they have this boxer, they have the setup potential, even from a Kufra. And we'll see, once again, just how good this Changi can be. By the way, has the Weakness Finder emblem. 100% not sure exactly what kind of build path we're going to see. But yeah, maybe it is still that mage, that mid kind of build that they want to go for. But right now, you have this kind of setup potential happening. You can see still Lika Tizia struggling a little bit with Hinata. And they'll play into this turtle now that it's spawning. As it gets set up, they're going to break out and fight.
In the bottom lane they go. Hinata doesn't want to go all in. Minus Fury had the flicker comboed in. Hinata will be knocked up twice now with the Black Dragon form to follow it up. Hinata still able to survive with the Dragon Tail. Finally gets rid of her now, as that's going to be a 2-man taunt into the Meteor Shower, which Lika Tizia soaks in. Eternal Guard to get rid of Hirai there, and they will be able to successfully take this fight. And now the continued chase with a taunt and a knockup onto Kana and a Petrify as well. Everything used up, and slowly but surely is getting rid of the HP bars. But no, they're not able to really fully execute any of the members, and it's an all-out win for Kazakhstan now as they go onto the turtle and slowly wants to just look for an angle, maybe to go for a cheeky little steal. Hinata doesn't have the flicker, does have the penalty zone though, so let's see now with zoning as well. It does seem like Hinata will not be able to escape, but has the penalty zone to go and turn it around. The Meteor Shower has enough damage to take Lika and Umino out, and it'll be a trade in the end. A turtle for 2 members.
Oh man, you saw the lineup with the Meteor Shower, and that's exactly what they wanted. Slowly with just able... Oh, hold on. Okay, that's interesting. So I think Hanada's going to have some trouble there. Gets executed, but they will continue down that path. It looks like it's possibly happening around, but so far they're going to be punished. Yeah, Soli as well. getting punished here, so Kazakhstan will take that, and they get a couple kills on the board.
Whoa. 3 kills just out of nowhere, and oh, that's a first item endless battle. Fun facts. Interesting. Oh, it does seem like Asami with the endless battle wants to just go through the frontliners. I think this is a great build, by the way, because usually we see the heptases, right? First item for the Clint, but this time around she notices that there's a lot of frontliners, and honestly, even in her lane, she's not really going to be able to use the heptases too much there. Space loves us, able to pop in his Amon Force in time. Now Hinata walking in again, and unfortunately will just be taken down by the turret, and Asami chases her down, and she's still walking it down. In the bottom lane, Likatizi secures a tier 1 turret, and it does seem like for Hirayat as well, she won't really be able to do much, as that's a terrified to lock her down under the turret, straight into the Furious Dive. Kazakhstan taking full control of the game.
Oh, they are going to continue to get punished here from Kazakhstan. Now getting themselves a little bit of couple thousand gold lead. So this is tough because with the swing back, they're going to punish, continuing to get these turrets, and Space loves us all by herself. Going to get taken out in an instant as well. And with Turtle coming up too, I'm not sure what Uzbekistan can do to actually contest this. Not sure if they still want to kind of battle it out, fight it out, but it looks like Kazakhstan is their window of opportunity to continue on, as that turret now will go down, and it looks like, Malefic Gun finally being picked up here.
First time we're seeing it in this series, in this patch, in a competitive match for me as well. I haven't seen it much actually pop up. So the first Malefic Gun, and it is to the Clint. So second item, Endless Battle into the Malefic Gun, as the Amon Force gets popped in by Space Loves Us to actually clear out the waves, and she will be able to do so, but still full control to Kazakhstan as of right now. That's a lot of damage. Grenade bombardment almost taking down slowly, and she's forced to just run back all the way to that tier 2, as now should be enough damage to take Space Loves Us down, who is in the bottom lane, and now Min's Fury as well. One last grenade bombardment should be able to take her down, and yes, with the help of the glowing wand, it just takes at her HP bar. Meanwhile, Kanoa in the bottom side of the map picks up a free turtle, and so far, no form of retaliation from Uzbekistan.
Yeah, that's tough. You can see, Kazakhstan clearly just going to go ahead and continue on with this that they have, so... there's not much that Uzbekistan can do about it, because it just looks like they're lacking and even be able to move around the map at this point. So Kazakhstan will push it in. It looks like getting these shields and waiting, but it looks like they're just going to end it here, Mirko.
They're going to have to surrender here at the 8th minute of the game, it seems. Uzbekistan, very unfortunate, but for Kazakhstan, they will be able to qualify to the main stage at WEC 24 Riyadh.
Well, unfortunate that that's the way the series had to conclude. It was going really well, I would say. But unfortunately, things had to kind of go that way. And congratulations once again. But I gotta say, for Uzbekistan, they were fighting through and through. And I wanted to see the Changi more, of course, get to the point, because we saw some pretty good team fights happening actually, but that is going to be the case, I suppose. So Kazakhstan, again, congratulations for winning the best of 5, and we'll see exactly how things kind of fall into place ahead for them in the future. But would have definitely loved to see kind of how things came to place. I was almost thinking we'd go to a game 5, man.
Same here. It really looked like in the early game, at least, it was so back and forth. It was the climactic game that we were expecting for a 4th game, to try to force out game 5, or to try to just give Kazakhstan that win over so that they could actually qualify to the main stage. But unfortunately, it does end like that. No problem though, to Kazakhstan especially. 3-1 victory here for them. They will be able to qualify over to Riyadh. And now I'm actually waiting for the results, perhaps, of the match that's overlapping with this one. But I guess we'll take a look at the highlights first, Naisu, of game number 4.
Yeah, let's take a look at the highlights here. Once again, this game, tough to see kind of unfold, but because it looked like I would say for Uzbekistan, able to kind of keep things pretty well together, and there was good back and forth between them. But you can just see a lot of this, once again, was, just Kazakhstan really kind of punishing in some of these team fights. Hanada, once again, having a pretty good start in a game on this Turizla, even with, you know, the fact that she's running the Impure Rage on this. But you can see just how they were really fighting it out. Unfortunately, you know, like I said, things went the way they did, and good setups here from just the Minoan Fury that Umino has, and able to play around that. Kazakhstan able to utilize this lineup that they had, but since this is the first time we get to see the Changi come through, you know, unfortunately, I wanted to see exactly what that full build, if they had gone to the full build for Slowly, what it would have looked like, how much damage she would have been able to pump out. Because even with running with a weakness finder, like playing into that, getting that slow, working with it, this is what I'm talking about. Like that lineup too, very good. There's a Feather of Heaven being locked in. But like I said, it just got to a point where things got out of hand, it slipped out of their hands, and there's not much they could have done from that point.
Yeah, not much at all, right? At this point as well, it does seem like for Hirai, she disconnected as well, and it looked like, yeah, she was going to die to the turret anyways. So, just the sieges overall, and I think mainly I really want to talk a little bit about how Amore just plays really well on the Vixana. Game number 2 and game number 4, on the Vixana, she just is able to find these skill shots so easily every single time, and unfortunately for Space Loves Us, this is the chain CC that we were talking about, even in game number 2, right? But now even more so, even more threatening, I would say, because in their composition, they got a Fredrin, they got a Minotaur, now Vixana as well, and the Yuzong. So many ways to actually go and, you know, chain combo in that CC. And it seems like we might actually go and get an interview as well with a player from Kazakhstan here in ISO, which is great. Want to hear from them definitely, you know, as to the meta as well, as to how they were able to take that game, especially in game 1 and 2, because it looked like they had the snowball ready, but then in game 3 they got overconfident. So that's my question for them, for sure. I think game 3, what happened? Was it just overconfidence? Did they completely lose track of their win conditions? What was it? Because it looked like they already had a plan in mind, but they weren't able to fully execute that game plan.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, I'm thinking, like, if we would have happened to get to see a game 5, that would have been really good, like, true and tested theory of, like, how they, you know, adjusted from game to game. Because I feel like even in this one, you know, we got to see the adjustments that Kazakhstan made, and it looked like, you know, it would have been a rather kind of good game when it came to the team fighting and how they transitioned from that early to mid game. And Lika Tizi, like we said in the draft, I think she wanted that that do-over, you know, to be able to win that lane matchup that she had to go against Hanana, where, you know, the Yu Zhang versus the Turizla. And, you know, I think overall too, like, just what we saw from Kazakhstan as a whole was great. They obviously, from both teams actually, like, they both really showed they understand the meta. They tested things out that typically we haven't seen just yet, but again, this is a new patch that has popped up, so you're going to see some of these new things and experimentations. You had a different kind of draft and ban phase happen, and to the point once again where you have a Fredrin, man, like a Fredrin finally popped up, and it looked like, you know, he was still pretty impactful, even in Appraiser's Wrath early on. It's just, again, my hope for that game was to finally see Fredrin dealing with the changes with Lord Dances. You know, like, is he still going to be that guy, you know, that Chad jungle pick that most teams want to pick up because of just how good he is with Lord Dances? And unfortunately, we only got to see the turtles, so we don't know exactly yet. Maybe we'll see him in our later matches today, of course, but, you know, still, I would say both teams really did really good adjustments from game to game. I did not expect the game 1 to go the way that it did, where we almost hit that 25-minute mark, but it did. And, you know, both teams, I feel like, just adjusted on the fly really well. It's unfortunate, of course, that only one of them gets to go forward, but, you know, I would say that for overall, Kazakhstan did a great job. Can't wait to hear what they have to say about this and their thoughts, because I know you and I have shared our thoughts about, you know, the series as a whole. I thought we were going to game 5. Uzbekistan, on the other hand, too, I still say they did a hell of a job in the series. It's I like the adjustments, and if I could really give them like a MVP over there, it'd definitely be Hanana, because she was what kept them really in the series and got them to this game.
I've got to agree, man. Hinata was really popping off, especially in game number 3, right? On the Terizla, completely outclassing Likatizi in that lane, and then utilizing that lead to snowball everywhere else. Using a penalty zone to catch all these members, deal damage, as well as soak in damage. And I think you really got to give credit to the changes in the War Axe as well, right? The fact that you can pick up the War Axe and get the War Axe plus the Bloodlust Axe, technically. And you get so much value on that item on Terizla. Usually, back in the day, I remember, you would just go Bloodlust Axe first item on the Terizla, right? And we have seen changes to that as well, especially with the Brave Smite. They don't really go for Bloodlust Axe anymore as first item. Usually we just see a Fury Hammer, and then they go straight into full tank. But yeah, no, now with the War Axe, you get so much more damage, so much more, technically, movement speed as well with that War Axe, and so much more sustain on top of the Brave Smite. Imagine that. Brave Smite plus Bloodlust Axe. Almost, right? With the War Axe there.
Yeah.
That's what she was able to use.
It's a whole lot of healing that you get, you know, and that's why it's funny too, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it all, but the Impure Rage that was utilized there too, you know. But let's go ahead, and I think we are ready to have the player interview with Kazakhstan. Let's see if they're ready and welcome up. But again, it's just, I would love to hear what they have today. There they are. Hello. Can you guys hear us?
Hello, guys.
Wait, hold on. I have to unmute my tab or something. I cannot hear them. Can you guys?
Nice.
There we go.
Hello.
There we go. Hello. Can you hear them, Mirko? You good?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Guys, congratulations, by the way, on your series
Thank
win. How are you guys feeling about game number 4?
Nervous, a little bit, I don't know, and so much happy, I think. We just didn't understand this.
No, you guys played amazingly, and it was great to see you guys play. Of course, I feel like, did you feel like it was a very tough opponent though? Like Uzbekistan was, did you feel like, you know, maybe you guys got to a game 5?
Sorry.
Did you feel like it was a tough matchup?
Maybe. Our English not so good.
It's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Mirko, do you have any questions for them?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, who are we talking to? Who's Amore? Who's Likatizi? Who's Umino? Right? Can you guys introduce yourselves? Which one's which?
Yamina. Likatizi. Sami.
Okay.
Kyoshi is here.
There you go.
And
so we got
Amor
full team
is
here.
Sena.
I see. All right. That's pretty cool. All right. So I have a question for you guys, right? So game 1, game 2, you guys were amazing. You guys played really, really well. But what happened in game number 3? Because game number 3, Uzbekistan were able to win. Was it just you guys making a few mistakes, or were you overconfident after game 1 and 2? What was it? What happened in game 3?
Whereas how to say, we stopped nervous, and and that was our mistake. And in the forests, not so much experience with the Julian, and we just stopped nervous, and then one mistake, and we like all nervousing and what to do. We don't know. That was so good. What's going on? Like this.
All right. Just nervous right now, Sue. But I have one more question just to ask right after that. Do you guys have a coach, or do you guys draft yourselves?
We have a coach, and we mixing it. Draft ourselves, and sometimes our coach like, stop doing it.
He's guiding you guys. Got it. Awesome. Guys, congratulations again. Thank you for joining us on the interview. Your English is great, by the way. And we will hopefully see you guys in the future. Yeah, congratulations again. And bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye.
She's there on the side. Oh man, again, congratulations, Kazakhstan. For some reason, when we started the interview, I had fireworks going off. I don't know what's going on. My bad about that, man.
Are those fireworks, or are those like, you know, is that thunder?
No, that was actually fireworks. That's why I had to like double check. I was like, I guess this is their fireworks for Kazakhstan winning, you know, like, but it was, I was kind of taken aback by it, but again, great to hear from Kazakhstan there. And, you know, again, we got you guys. We understood you guys. You're English. Don't worry about it. You guys are doing great. And you guys played really well. So again, to them, to Kazakhstan,
exactly,
congratulations. And can't wait to see what we see from them in the future, man.
Gotta agree, man. You know, for their performance as well, it was just really, really good, right? All the way from game number 1, game number 2, we were talking about how Amore was really, really good. And again, for Asami as well, she was able to really understand her role every single time when she wants to go in late. I think even game number 3, I think what's most impressive for me is the game that they lost. Because in the game that they lost, when they started losing, they didn't go to just go for random team fights. They didn't just go to, you know, fight and gamble on that lead, maybe 50-50 at every single time. They actually looked for an actual way to get out of that sticky situation, out of that 10,000 gold lead. They looked to trade in the bottom lane. They looked to mirror. They always sent Asami to the other side, to the far lane, so that she would be able to get farm. And ultimately, she was almost able to do that, right? She got her 3-item power spike, and in the base defense, they defended. They defended really, really well. Unfortunately, you know, at that point, they've already lost a bit too much, and they were already behind a bit too much for them to make a complete comeback happen. But hey, that shows you that they have, you know, that gameplay in mind as well. Even if they lose, they can actually just adapt and adjust accordingly.
Well, we'll see if they can in the future for them, but we are going to be taking a short break, I believe 15 minutes, because we are going to be jumping right into the next match, the next best of 5. After that break, it's Hong Kong, China versus Mongolia. So everybody, get your snacks, get your break, and we'll be back after this. Again, I'm Naisu, and that's Mirko. We'll be back after 15 minutes.